Hi guys, I'm setting up Cotton Candy 65 as a mod right now. I'll be right with you. All right, I might bore you guys to death today. Am I too loud? Do I sound okay? Let me know in the chat if you would. Um, but I might bore you because what I'm going to be discussing today is a bunch of news briefs on summer wells. I figured if we could put them in some kind of timeline, everybody could go back. Hi, Flip Flop. Everybody could go back and, when the transcript comes out and have an easy source of timeline to look up something, if they needed to at any time. I didn't record, every briefing from every channel or every date. And I didn't go all the way up until present time. I just grabbed the ones that interest me the most. Hi, Kiko. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit as we go along. Hi, Wandering Hearts. And so, you guys do it too in the chat. There's going to be several things when we get to it that, we've talked about here and there on this channel and other channels concerning the searches. Hi, Jack of all trades. And so some of it I find really, really interesting. And so it plays into a couple of my previous lives I've done recently concerning searches. And so with that, it's not going to be any videos. It's just going to be me talking. And if you get bored, I'll understand. I've never done it this way, so I hope you guys can still hear me when I flip over and start doing this. If you can't, let me know in the chat. So I'm going to start off with June 16th, 2021, and it's WATE 6 News. And hopefully my brain and mouth will work together and the words will come out of my mouth properly. I do have issues with that sometimes, and my brain works faster than my mouth and so on. And if I can't figure out how to pronounce a word, then I'm just going to skip it because the more I try, the worse I get. So anyway, here we go. Sheriff Lawson is at the podium and he states the following. This is June 16th now. And he goes, they have 19 different agencies working. Now remember that. He's saying right then they have 19 different agencies working. Last night, the 15th of June, 2021, they had approximately 60 to 80 people searching in the woods with a number of law enforcement officers doing the investigations. Today, we had over 100 people in the woods searching throughout the region, the whole region. And we also had, now I didn't like that because he said whole region. That would mean the entire county. And that's not a fact. And so I'm going to read that sentence again. Today, we have had over 100 people in the woods searching throughout the whole region, and we also have agents with TBI and the FBI assisting my office, jointly investigating this circumstance. Our main goal is to find Summer, find her safe. We have plenty of help, don't need any assistance from the local people. We have professional people out searching, and we appreciate everybody, their contributions. There has been a tremendous outpour from the community with the water and the food and the snacks, and it's just overwhelming. And it's a very intense invest to know things, but it's ongoing, and we'll release things as we can, when we can. But our main goal right now is to find Summer. I want you to pay, you might, if you have a notebook beside you, you might want to write down what they say per day as far as how many people, how many agencies, and search area that they've covered per day. Okay, because it really will make a difference once you do that. It's really hard to follow along and keep track of that in your head as you hear it. But once you write it down, you'll see what I mean. That's why I wanted to put it out so that it could go back, someone could go back, look at the transcript, and then see. So at this point, hi everybody. Hi, Funny Face Brenda, BB Diamond, Kimberly. Hi, Hey Jude. And so Leslie Earhart, TBI spokesman, steps up at the podium and she tells reporters that they will take a couple of questions, but to keep in mind that they can't discuss specifics of the investigation. Reporter asks, "Can you talk about the area back there?" And I'm unable to make out the rest of the sentence because there was background noise. Someone else might be able to, and let me know in the comments section later on. Sheriff Lawson responds, "Absolutely. It's very dense. The terrain is tremendously hard. Firstly, no cell phone service. The radio systems we use, which is not that good, we have very little radio communications. We do have several command posts setting up, but that's what makes it, hang on. That's what makes it so hard is the communication between boots on the ground, searching the woods, and different agencies and officers. And it's very hard to communicate." I'm going to stop right there. And I believe that whoever took Summer knew that to be the case, knew that communication in that area was very sparse and that it would be difficult to even call 911 and report something, right? I think they were very aware of all of that. And so anyway, he goes on to say, we're not like over here in the small towns or in towns where you have a lot of cell service. And just for instance, when we get texts from media, you may text and we may get it an hour later, and we have no way to reply to it. Now, remember when Jody Sue was talking about June 15th Facebook post that Candace posted to her Facebook? I believe it was 6:06, I believe it was that night. And Jody Sue said that, she could have posted it earlier, but once she left the hill that it posted at a later time. Well, I found that odd because Jody Sue was saying that she posted her message at 6:09 coming down her hill, right, that day. And keep that in mind too, okay? So it was Jody Sue that came out after this broadcast of Lawson, where Jody Sue was talking about how the service works in that area. So again, we have Jody Sue repeating something that she may have heard elsewhere, but made it sound like it was coming from her. And it's always striking to me when I find something that was said almost verbatim by someone else, but had come out from her later on in time. Lawson goes on to say, and the officers in ECOM and Central Dispatch has done an excellent job. TBI has their command post. That should arrive soon. And we're going to continue on till we find Summer and put this case to rest. The reporter, hi, Lady R. How you doing, love? I hope your son's okay, baby. You don't have to say what's going on, but if you need anything, just let me know. Send me an email. And the reporter goes on to say, do you believe that there was foul play involved? And is there any history with the family? Sheriff Lawson replies, the family is cooperating. It's really too early to tell. We're just basically gathering information and we're in the search mode right now. Another reporter asked about the Amber Alert switch from a missing child and asked what goes into making that happen. Can you clarify the difference? And Leslie Earhart steps up to the podium and replies, after the initial search, as we developed more information as part of the investigation, our team made the decision to elevate the alert to an Amber Alert. Notice how she hem-hawed around that. She didn't quite answer him. Reporter asked, what was the information? And Leslie replies, an endangered child is a middle level alert. Let me try that again, guys. An endangered child alert is a middle level alert where a child could potentially be in danger. An amber alert is we issue those when we believe a child is in danger of bodily harm or death. It is the most severe alert. Let me see if Lady R wrote back. Okay, no, all right. Reporter asked, it appeared that she walked away from the home. Why would it be elevated to an amber alert? Can you clarify that a little bit? So at that point, they were all, saying that they believed or, they were insinuating that Summer just walked away, right? They continue to make people go that route. So this reporter is really, really on top of things. And this is the 16th. And they're pinning them down. Why did you change it to an amber alert if she just walked away, right? Leslie responded with, well, the bottom line is we don't know where she is at this time. Again, there was the initial search, we acted, and the sheriff's office acted on the information available at that time. And as we learned more in the first several hours into today, it led us into issuing the Amber Alert. So what was the more that made them up it, right? The red truck, something somebody said in that area to them, there had to be something to make them feel that they needed to up that report. Now, they have said that the last time that they felt they had any kind of proof that Summer was alive and well, right, was when she left Hunter. So at that point, are they just taking Hunter's word on it that, that Summer was even in that truck at that particular time? Because if you listen to CM's interview, Hunter was all over the place. He was so scattered, that when he got out of the truck, he couldn't wait to get out. He didn't know where anyone was sitting, where the milk, it was just very scattered. And so, really don't know where they're getting that from. The reporter goes on to say, parents' behavior, facts not lining up. Hi, Curse with Curiosity. Hi, Shay. How you doing, love? I always wondered why they didn't check the landfill also. I can't put your comments up, guys, on my screen like I'd like to do right now because I've got another window up in front of me that I'm reading off of. And so, I'm looking at my chat off my phone and I'm on my laptop. So forgive me for that. I wish I could do both and I don't know how to do it if it's possible. The reporter asked, well, when the Amber Alert was issued, was there new information that led you to believe that Summer might be in more danger? Can you expand on that a little bit? And Leslie says, I can't. That's part of the investigation. Another reporter asked Sheriff Lawson, is Sheriff Lawson asking the public not to search? Does he have enough resources here? People want to help. How can they help at this time? And Sheriff Lawson steps up to the podium and he states, now listen to this. If they see something or know something, they need to tell somebody. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't want to get involved. They want to reply to us or respond anonymous. That's fine. Long as we find Summer, that's the main thing right now. And we're talking about the Amber Alert. When they raise that up another level, that helps more people paying more attention. You get more clues. You get more calls. And then everybody can call that 1-800-TBI-FIND and it all goes into a database, which helps us in an area that we don't have a lot of communication anyway. So TBI helps us with that. All right, so we're just going to go over that little thing that he said. Okay. He just said that if somebody knows something, say something. Well, a whole lot of people knew a whole lot of things and they said something and they weren't well received in the beginning, right? And we all know why. We all know why that happened. Okay. We know who was the catalyst that caused all that to happen. Okay. So then it goes on, he's saying that you can call 1-800-TBI and give your information and all of that, and that it would go into TBI's database. Okay, well, a lot of people have tried to send in tips, right? And they haven't been received. This was the very next day, y'all. Reporter goes on to say, "Hi, Aunt B. Hi, Lisa 54. Hi, Cat's Eye. Hi, Imagine Peace. Am I missing anyone else? Don't think so." Reporter says, "Can you tell if the FBI was called in fairly early? Can you explain why that was made?" Sheriff Lawson responded with, "Well, we have an excellent relationship working together. And just like this case stems outside of Hawkins County, then you have the TBI to help with that. But if it extends on out past the state of Tennessee, then you've got the FBI. So we're all on the same page and we just keep on going. We're just working together as a team. All have the same goal. Let's find Summer." All right, well, I happen to know a little bit about law enforcement in that regard, and a lot of agencies do not work well together, and it's usually because of egos. And it's one agency might be wanting, like, say, let's just use this as an example. This isn't something that I know to be fact. It's just an example. TBI could be wanting to receive information in Hawkins County, be shutting it down, or vice versa, right? Um, Hawkins is supposed to be the lead right now in Summer's case. And if you watch the body language of everybody in videos, and I'm a huge body language person, you'll see what I mean. And so Sheriff Lawson, reporter asked, "Can you expand on just the area where you guys have searched? And if people see something in a certain area, they should be on a heightened alert for the rest of the area?" Which that question didn't make any sense to me. Sheriff Lawson replied, "Well, it's the terrain and stuff." Now I'm going to stop right there. They've used the terrain and stuff as an excuse, in my opinion, all along, guys. Okay. Almost every news video, you see them point to trees behind them and talk about the dense terrain. Okay, now we know it's dense, but it's not like it's another planet. You know what I mean? Lots of people live in dense wooded areas, and they're just making it sound like it's, you know, the Amazon. So Sheriff Lawson replied, "Well, it's the terrain and stuff, just like you see here. This is what people are searching in. But if they seen something yesterday in the afternoon, we need to know. That's when they need to make a call and report. Come by command post." Reporter asked, "Any kind of landmarks that of the area that you're searching?" Sheriff Lawson replied, "Just the around Ben Hill Road in that area. That's the main. She's 5 years old and she left the house. And evidently, she got a little farther than they expected." Now, that comment bothered me from the very beginning. From June 16th, that comment has bothered me because he, right there, in my opinion, has made up his mind. Hi, Liplock. Hi, Piper 63. He has made up his mind that Summer wandered off. And if he's made up his mind, then he's not going to be receptive to anything anyone else brings to him, if you see where I'm going with that. Okay. He's already said it. Evidently, she got a little farther than they expected. Those are his exact words. Reporter asked, "Do you have any? How much territory your volunteers are covering?" Sheriff Lawson replied, "A lot. We have so many out there that they," and I couldn't make out the next word, "the scope, plus we've been able to utilize our craft. THB has been wonderful with their helicopter, medical helicopter, with the THB's flare. Communities come in to help us, plus all the different resources, agencies, and the rescue squads." I'm sorry, I missed a sentence. Let me start that over, guys. THB has been wonderful with their helicopter, medical helicopter, with the THB's flare at night, and they're flying today. And it's just outstanding how communities come in to help us, plus all the different resource agencies and the rescue squads and EMSs and all the law enforcement. And we just hope they have a great result and fine summer. Reporter asked if they had gotten any leads, and Leslie steps up to the podium and said, "At this time, we are following up on any and all leads." And she thanks everyone for being there and encourages the public to call in any credible information to 1-800-TBI-FINE, and they continue to hold out hope for the best outcome. Now, that was June 16th. For everyone that's coming in, I've tried to do this to give it sort of an outline of these news briefs and stuff, so that someone, if they need to, can go back and look at the transcript and would have kind of a basis, to quickly find something if you need to, instead of having to go and Google search and listen to a whole broadcast. Now, some is verbatim, some of it is paraphrased. And hi, Kiko. Hi, Two Old Crows. And so and I didn't do every single one, and I didn't do every single one for each day by different channels. So just grabbed what I found interesting. And it also plays into what I've been talking to you guys about concerning the searches lately, and what I know to be truthful of where and what was searched in that area. Excuse me. June 17th, 2021. This is the TBI briefing. Leslie Earhart is at the podium and gives the following briefing. "We had hoped to have good news to share, but we do not. The search remains ongoing. Teams continue to search the area, and leads continue to be followed up as they come in. Many have asked how they can assist with the search, and at this time, we are not asking for volunteers to assist. What we are asking is for residents to continue to share photos of summer and information from credible sources." Now, this was not even 48 hours later, y'all, and they were already mentioning credible sources. I am sure they had not been inundated with misinformation from the public within that time frame. A week later, possibly, the public knew very little about Summer and her family within the first 48 hours, unlike what a certain person likes to make people think otherwise. Most of all that was out there at that time was comments on the Churchill Rescue page. And so there wasn't much going on anywhere else at that time. So already they thought somebody was giving out misinformation. Leslie continues to say that they know the reporters have lots of questions about the search area and the process. And she tells us that Sheriff Lawson has arranged for Captain Tim Coop of the Churchill Rescue Squad to elaborate on those efforts. I want you to pay attention to everything that Tim Coop says and does throughout all of this process, guys. He is serving as the incident commander of ground search operations. So when y'all want to complain to somebody or about somebody that had anything to do with the searches and who directed them and why and what and where, it would be Tim Coop. Okay, he was the one that was in control of everything. Leslie invites Mr. Coop to the podium, begins with the following. He wishes that he had better news than they have now for notifications of Miss Summer going missing. We have implemented several methods of search and rescue. With most leads, we continue to do. Have utilized ground crews of 80 to 100 people, of trained professionals, aerial aviation, search, both visual and FLIR, medical THB and TBI assisting with fixed wing, multiple drones, and 4 different K9 units. Now remember that, 4 different K9 units. I would like to know where those K9 units searched and were they all actually used, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. Did different ones search the wells and immediate area close to her home? I'm concerned about the dog that was, if it was the dog of the officer that got in trouble for selling, wasn't it stealing drugs from evidence to supply himself? You know, if you're not constantly training the canines, no matter if they had, their training to begin with, it's just like anybody, if you're not constantly training, you become lax. It's just like someone, let me just give this example because I'm going to speak about this throughout here too. A lot of sheriff's department become a little bit on the overweight side compared to police department. And I don't know why that is. Don't ask me, but it's almost in every office. If you don't keep your body up, you can't search properly. You can't function properly. You can't run, and so on. The same goes on with canines. If they're not constantly trained and, trying to think of the word I'm trying to get and it won't come to my brain, they become lax. The handler becomes lax. And we had, Jody Sue saying that the dog stopped at her feet. Well, if the handler's not paying attention to the dog, what the alert that dog gives, and if the dog was being irritated by other dogs, it's very likely that, a lot of things were being missed that day. So I'm curious as to what canine units searched those areas. And so Tim Coop continues with the following. The day that she went missing, we searched from the time we got the notification until dark. We searched all day yesterday and resumed this morning, and will continue on throughout the rest of the operational period. So there was operational period. We'll discuss that in a few minutes. Utilizing multiple ground crews, drones, fixed wing, and helicopters with canines on standby. Now, what did he just tell you in that first sentence? That they searched. Nope, they had them on standby, guys. Those canines were on standby. They weren't out there searching like canines should have been. Okay? They were on standby. That's what I'm saying. When you're listening to a video, a broadcast like that, the information comes into your brain so fast that you don't thoroughly absorb it. Now, some people do. And that's why it pays to go back over and listen, to everything and pick it apart. And that's what we're doing today. We're picking it apart. And so right there, he just told you that 4 canine units were utilized. And then within the same paragraph, he doubles down and says that they were on standby. Why were the canines on standby? Coop states the following: some of the issues that they are encountering with the search are the steep and dangerous terrain. Now, notice, like I told you in the beginning, this is constantly pumped out in your brain, okay? Steep and dangerous terrain. We are also experiencing, as you see behind us, and he points to the woods behind him, it's very dense. Canopy coverage, including very dense ground cover, causing search efforts to become very difficult and taking extra time to cover those areas adequately, exhausting teams a lot quicker, and in turn, causing longer for those grounds to be covered. All right, there you go again. I feel in my heart that any agency that is in a area that's mountainous or desert or wherever, they should be qualified to be able to search their lands, their region. They should have training, at least twice a month, where these people have to go out there and trudge through these areas. And if they're not capable of keeping up and doing well, it's just like the military. You're out, buddy. Goodbye. See you later. Have a nice day. And that's the kind of boss I would have been at that particular time. You got agencies coming in from different areas. They might not be used to that terrain, and I can understand that. But Lawson told you that his officers were doing investigation. Okay. So anyway, seems like a whole lot of excuses going on so early into the search. And so he says, causing search areas to become very difficult and taking extra time to cover these areas adequately, exhausting teams a lot quicker, and in turn, causing longer for these grounds to be searched, allowing those teams for recovery and rehab. So in other words, they search and then they got to recover and rehab. And so now remember, if you think of SWAT teams, they're all fit. They look like they work out every day. And I hope folks are following me with this, where I'm trying to talk about the rescue squad. What condition are these people really in that are doing these rescue operations? How fit are they? Because if they're not fit, they're not going to do a good job, in my opinion. Exercise and training is a big, big thing if you're going to be in rescue. Coop continues to say, we have covered at 1 mile from the residence seen by ground and dog. So he's saying now that dog and human covered 1 mile. I don't believe that. I don't believe it at all. Hopefully, by the end of the day, we will have covered 2 ground miles. Now, I also know that not all that property on Ben Hill was searched. I know that because it's been told to me. Assisting with THP, expanding theirs to a minimum of 4 miles aerial aviation searching. So it's going to be 4 miles of aviation, but he's just told you that there's dense canopy, meaning the tree cover, it's very hard to make out what's on the ground when you're flying over trees. So he's just told you, right, that 1 mile by dog on the ground. If you got a dog, then you got a handler, okay? And that they will have covered 2 ground miles by the end of the day. This is the 17th. And 4 miles by a minimum of 4 miles aerial aviation searching. He states that everybody continues to ask, well, if she wandered off, why did somebody not see her? Now pay attention to this. He says this part of the community The residents are very spread out. Some may have from one hilltop to another hilltop or a start of a road, and you may go a mile back before you ever get to another residence. Okay, let's listen to that again. This part of the community, the residents are very spread out. Some may from one hilltop to another hilltop or at a start of a road, and you may go a mile back before you ever get to another residence. He goes on to say that it is making it very difficult for residents just to be able to be at home outside working or something and notice her leaving that area. Now that's the sentence that bothers me. Okay, and I'm going to read it again. He goes on to say that it is making it presently, okay, not made it. It is making it very difficult for residents just to be able to be at home, outside working, or something, and notice her leaving that area. So right there with what he said is that some are disappeared and that the neighbors are, working and spread out, may not be home, or they're working in the area, and they didn't notice that she's still walking through that area. Because he's not saying it past tense. He's saying making it very difficult. So again, they were convinced that Summer had wandered off. They really weren't putting in effort to really search anything other than to find a child that wandered off into the woods. And he just stated that, right? Okay. Now, that's going to play into something else here in a few minutes. Do y'all need me to read that part again? Let me know in chat, and I'll go back over it. Hi, Wiz. Hi, Mimi Jean. Hi, everybody that I might have missed because I'm not looking at chat right now. I'm sorry. Let me see where I left off. And so he's talking about you get a lot of information from Tim Coop if you really listen, okay? It really struck me odd that he would say that, and he said it in the way he did. And he goes on to say, excuse me, as we continue, we will continually assist Hawkins County Sheriff Department, TBI, and FBI with this search as long as they deem necessary. And as Leslie stated at this time, we are not asking for any public nor volunteers assist in the search. A lot of people, now this is Tim talking, okay? A lot of people wonder why. Due to the extreme terrain, the nature of this trying to locate her, trained professionals are what we need at this time to make sure that these residents don't become endangered and run around and expand this with having to search for somebody else. Now, I understand the worry that they have, that somebody might get lost, and I understand the dangers of searching, but that is always the case when searching. Danger and the possibility of anything happening, such as snake bite, animal attack, falls, and so on. But there are many people who are well versed in both how to search professionally, how to search mountainous terrain. Again, these are considered hills by many who live in more mountainous areas. But that's beside the point. That's my opinion. Leslie Earhart finishes up by saying, as we've stated before, the circumstances surrounding Summer's disappearance remain unclear. So if we do develop information that she was taken, and we develop a suspect and a vehicle description, of course, we will share that with the public immediately. At this time, that's just not the case. So right there, she's telling you that they have nothing to say that this child, did anything but walk off. That's what she just said. She says if they develop information that she was taken, And we developed suspect and vehicle description. We will share that immediately. But she just told people the day before that they had to up it to an Amber Alert because of the potential for bodily harm or death. Okay, so I guess that's just wandering around in woods, in their opinion. Reporter asked, what time was she last seen and who reported her missing in the family? Leslie directs the question over to Sheriff Lawson, who replied, her parents reported her missing right around 6:30. Reporter asked, but when was she? Did they say when she was last seen? I know that she was reported missing around that time, but was she last seen in the afternoon or that day even? So already the reporters were catching on something wasn't right, right? Sheriff Lawson replied, that time is varied because they were searching for their child theirself. Now I'm going to stop right there. Now, Jody Sue has said that nobody was searching, Candace and nobody was searching for Summer until after just before 6:09. She's convinced of it, okay? Sheriff Lawson's telling you that they were searching for Summer. The family was searching for Summer before they called. Reporter asked, I have a question for Captain Tim Coop. Just wanted to see, are you asking for assistance from other agencies? That yesterday you all mentioned 19 agencies helping out. Now with the quick turnover in personnel, it sounds like that are searching. Are you all looking for other agencies from surrounding counties to help? And what is the hours that you are all searching? So right there, that reporter's already caught on to what Tim Coop's been saying. Tim Coop is saying that, the agencies are wearing themselves out so quickly and they need to rest and rehab. Okay, well, rehab means you're taking quite a while, right? So the reporter is asking, do you have any other agencies that's going to step in and cover for these people that are falling out everywhere, according to the way Tim Coop is making it sound, right? Coop responds with, yeah. So hours of operation at this time are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have, like Leslie stated yesterday, we have utilized at this time 19 different agencies throughout the state of Tennessee. Now pay attention, y'all. We also have multiple agencies outside of our jurisdiction and burning states, and also expanding to Middle Tennessee to have these teams on standby. He said that they utilized 19 different agencies throughout the state, and that they also have multiple agencies outside of their jurisdiction and states, and are expanding to Middle Tennessee to have these teams on standby. Okay, 19 different agencies throughout the state of Tennessee, but now he's just turned around and telling you that they're expanding to Middle Tennessee to have these teams stand on standby. Did you utilize them, like, put them to work, or utilize them to have them on standby? Because what he just said in that paragraph is contradictive. Reporter asked, you talked about getting tips. Can you give me an idea of the magnitude of tips that you have so far and the time that has passed? Is there concern, that it's less likely to find her alive? Leslie approaches the podium and responds with, of course. The longer this goes on, the more concerned we get. At this stage, we've received nearly 50 leads. None have panned out so far. And this is 2 days later. They've had 50 leads and they were able to determine that they were feasible within 2 days. Reporter asks, 50? Leslie responds, yes, approximately 50 leads at this point. Reporter asks, who did Summer live with, and is there any history with this family with law enforcement? Leslie directs the question over to Sheriff Lawson, who responded with, Summer lived with her parents and 3 siblings. Reporter asked, "Are those her biological parents, mother and father?" Sheriff Lawson replied, "Yes, ma'am." Reporter asked again, "Is there any history of," and the question is drowned out by a red truck towing a trailer with several large bales of hay. I'm talking like 6 or 7 guys that passed behind Lawson. And he said, "1 second," so as to allow the noise to pass. And I was surprised that there wasn't a reaction on his face to the truck because Lawson did look back, saw the truck, saw the bales of hay, but he paid no attention whatsoever. He didn't look at it twice. He didn't do a double take. His awareness sucks. And I'm just going to put that out there because that's my opinion. Reporter repeats the question, "Is there any history of your office going to their home or any criminal history?" Sheriff Lawson replied, "The father has a criminal history." Reporter asked him to elaborate on it, and Sheriff Lawson responded with, "I don't have it with me." Well, you knew that he knows, right? Reporter asked, "Is there any of the family a person of interest?" Sheriff Lawson responded with, "Everybody is a person of interest until we find Summer. The most important thing is to find Summer. That's what it's all about. That's why we're doing the ground searches, aerial searches, and finding her is first and foremost." Reporter asked, "Are you concerned with this child could be an abduction at this point?" And Lawson said, "Everything is on the table. I mean, we're looking at everything, crossing every T, dotting every I, turning every stone. That's why we've had 2 different operations." And at this point, he points to Captain Coop and continues to say, "Captain, operation of search and rescue and law enforcement's operation is looking into this incident and find Summer," meaning his sheriff's office is working with the rescue squad. He didn't point over to TBI. He pointed over to Tim Coop, and he said that's why they had the 2 operations working together. Reporter asked, "I've also heard that there's been some speculation that there are siblings in the household. Just wasn't sure if you're able to elaborate on the siblings at all." Lawson replied, "They have 3 others besides Summer." And so that was pretty much the end of that broadcast, y'all. And so now we're 3 days past Summer's disappearance, and it's June 18th, 2021, and it's WJHL News. Hi, Candalee. Hi, Annabella. Hi, Hattie's Hunches and Inklings. Hi, Izzy Rose. Hi, Ancient Gypsy, Pit Mom. Smiley Story, I loved your video of that tape. That was awesome, love. You did an excellent, excellent job. If I've missed anybody, I'm sorry. Okay, so Don Wells this is going to be Don Wells, okay? He's standing outside, and I don't go, I didn't do the whole thing. It's spliced, news videos are spliced. They might say it's the full video, but it's not. You can tell if you know what you're looking at. You can tell when videos are spliced and put together. And 90% of the time, like Lip Block can tell you, when you do interviews, most of it hits the newsroom, editing floor. So Don, and that's really bad that they do that, actually, because things can be taken out of context, made sound a certain way, and depending on the bias of the news channel reporting, it can lean in a certain direction. And so I'm not saying that any of these channels have done that. I'm just saying that, it's possible. Don Wells is standing outside with his son and states that, so when her mother came in, she says, "Where's Summer?" And she went down into the basement. She didn't answer, so she went down there and she was just gone. So she went out the basement door, which was unlocked, and we haven't seen her since. Please let Summer be okay. Some bad person grabbed her and we have no idea. We're trying to beat our brains out. We've covered everything that we can think of already. We really appreciate everybody trying to help. We have law enforcement and all these volunteers here. Never seen anything like this in my entire life. All right, there was a long interview, but it was, the reporters talking, and then they would pan back to Dawn, and like I said, it was spliced, but that was the meat of that interview, guys. June 18th, same day, TBI's news alert. Leslie Earhart stated that local, state, and federal agencies are in Hawkins County assisting in the search for Summer Wells. She states that Summer was reported missing from her home in the 100 block of Ben Hill Road at around 6:30. They never say an exact time. They always say at around 6:30 on June 15, 2021. She was reportedly last seen wearing gray pants, a pink shirt, and was possibly barefoot. At this time, the circumstances of her disappearance remain unclear, which means investigators have to explore all possibilities. Leslie goes on to talk about air and ground searches, combing through thick and steep terrain. Notice that? Sheriff, if y'all hear my stomach growling, I'm sorry. It happens every time I go live. I don't know what it is. Must be a nervous thing. Sheriff Lawson speaks and states, we also have investigators following every lead that comes in on TBI Find, and also the ones that called into Central Dispatch, and every lead is important to us. We follow every one. We still want to encourage the public, the community, if they know something, say something. And they do make the call and they can remain anonymous. And let me stop right there. Do y'all think that they were doing what he just said at that point? I don't think so. Leslie speaks up again and says that they continue to hold hope that Summer will be found safe and asks that anyone with information call 1-800-TBI-FIND or email tips2tbi@dn.gov. And that's the email, guys, that you would want to use in order to communicate with TBI concerning any tips for Summer Wells. June 18th, and I'll say it again, tips2tbi@tn.gov. June 18th, 2021, WJHL. This is still the same day. Reporters speaking out saying the following. As we have heard, the crews are facing a tough task with the terrain in the area. TBI has released aerial video of the home where Summer lived and the surrounding area to give you some perspective of what rescue personnel are dealing with as they continue to search for the child. They continue to show us these pictures of very dense brush and hilly area vying for an extremely difficult search today. TBI said that they have received dozens of tips. While it is a search for Summer, it's also an investigation into what happened leading up to her disappearance, and all avenues are being explored. So far, they have received 85 tips, and crews on the ground will expand the search today to offer a wider range. Now, did y'all just notice that? They're going to expand the search to offer a wider range, yet they've just continued to say all the stuff about terrain for 3 days. And you're going to learn as you go on that most of that searching was done on 110. Captain Tim Coop speaks and states that I'm sorry, I skipped. New search method, let me start again here. So far, they have received 85 tips, and crews on the ground will expand the search today to offer a wider range. New search methods were added today to sift through creeks and crevices around Ben Hill Road. So they're still in Ben Hill, right? Captain Tim Coop speaks and states that dive teams, hazardous, and extreme search teams, subject matter experts have been deployed the state TAC and radio system to increase radio coverage for the search and law enforcement efforts. The urban search and rescue teams have deployed state and federal resources. It sounds like a whole lot of stuff going on, right? Reporter continues to say that Coop said that as of Thursday, over 600, and that was only 2 days, right? Thursday, Summer went missing on Tuesday. Thursday, Coop is saying that over 680 acres had been searched with the hope of having over 1,000 acres searched by 8 p.m. tonight. So by 3 days, they were hoping to have 1,000 acres searched. Sheriff Lawson has confirmed that the community residents have consented to law enforcement searching their properties. Pay attention to that too, guys. He said, no search warrants have been necessary in the search for Summer. Pay attention to that. She shows an image at this point of Mount Carmel Church where a radio signal booster had been deployed to boost signal within the area by radio, but phone signals are still pretty bad. All right, so the next day, 4 days later, June 19th, 2021, Equisearch announces the following on their Facebook page. We have been asked by Tennessee state authorities to assist in the search for Summer Wells. We have members out to start helping tomorrow. Okay, so they were en route. Now, to explain a little bit about Equisearch and other search teams, they often have a case given to them, and that means that when a case is given to someone like that, law enforcement has provided them with all the information that they have at that time. So they would know where law enforcement's headed in their investigation, what law enforcement's thinking, and so on, where they've searched, what they've found, evidence, so on. Equisearch wasn't given that information, guys. Not this time. Not with Hawkins County, not with TBI. That was all held back. Okay. Usually when a search team comes in, they take advice, from law enforcement, such as where it's been searched. If they're a dive team, then they're told, oh, we searched this pond, and they might go back and search that pond again. That's what they're there for. That they're specialized. And so when Equisearch came, they were directed to an area by Tim Coop. And I just want to put that out there. Okay. It wasn't like they could just go where they wanted to go and do what they wanted to do. All right. So June 21st, 2021, WATE 6 News. Hi, Jay. How are you doing, love? Reporter states that Summer was reported missing on June 15th, 2021, and an Amber Alert was issued the next day, June 16th, 2021. The public is asked to call 1-800-TBI-FIND with information, no matter how insignificant one might think it to be. How that changed, guys. TBI press conference begins with Leslie Earhart at the podium, and she stated that Summer is still missing. TBI continues to work with Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and the FBI and are utilizing all available resources to include the FBI's Child Abduction Deployment Team. She states that the circumstances surrounding Summer's disappearance remains unclear. So right there, she's telling you. They don't know how she went missing at all. Okay. Usually at this point, they will give the public some sort of something to go on, usually within about 4 days. They usually give a couple little hints to the public because they want the public to talk. Okay. And you're not getting it here. TBI press conference begins with Leslie Earhart at the podium, and she states that Summer is still missing. And I've already read that. I'm sorry. They have followed up on residential surveillance videos and photos from around the area of Summer's home. Now I'm going to stop right there. Do y'all remember the lady that pulled up in the car when Hills on the Ground was there? And she told them that she had cameras and that nobody had come by and asked her for her, camera data. And that was what, December, January, right? So evidently, they weren't going door to door, knocking on doors. They were just hoping some people were going to call in and give all this information. Because had they gone door to door, they would have known that this woman had, cameras too, right? Lost my place again. Drivers seen in the area at the time of her disappearance have been identified and interviewed. Drivers seen in the area. You're probably going to hear my grandson in the background, guys. He's in therapy right now, and he's probably really ticked off about having to be told to match cards together, and he's not wanting to listen to them. So y'all will just have to ignore it if you hear it. They have not ruled out an abduction, but do not have evidence at this point to confirm that is what occurred. Due to that, the ground search continues because it is possible that she wandered off and is lost and afraid. She states that Sheriff Lawson will now talk about what is needed from property owners. So there you go again. 4 days later, they're pushing lost and afraid. Kid is just out there wandering around. Okay. Ronnie Lawson steps up to the podium and states the following. He first thanks Mount Carmel Church for their allowing the property to become a command center. He repeats that every available resource is being used, and today he wants to use the public. He wants the word to get out to all the residents in Upper Beech Creek Community, Hawkins County, and Sullivan County, that they need the residents to go back today, tonight, tomorrow, ASAP, go back and check their entire property. Any outbuildings, any barns, any place a child could hide. We desperately need you to do that for us. It is easier for you to check your own property than it is to send an officer out there, meaning one officer, to send an officer out there. We have not stopped, as Captain will tell you. We have been 24/7 for 6 days now. No, you haven't. Your time's off, dude. So we desperately need help from the community now searching their own property. But he just told you all this time now for 4 days. They have all these agencies and they've searched all this ground. But now he's telling property owners, right? And no search warrants were needed. But now he's telling you that you need to go out and search your properties. And, because it's easier for you to search your property than them to send out a officer, not a trained professional, not trained professionals, but an officer. Okay? How well do you think that officer is going to search property? Let's be for real. Captain Tim Coop steps up to the podium and he states the following. We will continue to search for Summer Wells until we locate Summer Wells. As of June 21st, 2021, search efforts will continue through the day and also the night. They have utilized 72 agencies from Tennessee, Ohio, Virginia, Alabama, Georgia, and North Carolina. They've utilized 72 agencies from those areas. Okay. Numerous specialized search and rescue groups and canine teams from those agencies. They have estimated approximately 2,400 acres have been searched. The rugged, mountainous terrain continues to cause problems. The search will continue Tuesday morning into Wednesday morning with updated releases as new information comes to light. If anyone has any information, contact Hawkins County Sheriff Department or 1-800-TBI-FINE. All right. So he's just told you, right, that they have estimated that they've searched approximately 2,400 acres. Leslie Earhart takes a few questions, and they are as follows. Reporter, has Summer ever wandered off before? Leslie Earhart replies, according to family members, it's not common for her to wander off. Reporter, Saturday, there was a pretty intensive search into a blank. Can you elaborate what that tip was and why there was such a large presence and why they came back out? So actually, that reporter is saying that there was a pretty big intensive search in a certain area that had already been searched before. Leslie replied, anytime we have information that could be potentially lead us to locate Summer, we're going to use all resources. Crews were in the area following up on a lead. Unfortunately, Summer is still missing. Reporter, how is the changing weather impacting your searches? And Captain Tim Coop steps up to the podium to answer that question. And he says, the projected weather forecast here for the next 24 to 48 hours will change our approach. It will not change our aggressive approach. Now, he just contradicted. The only thing that this will change may be what terrain we approach at this time due to severe thunderstorms. We can't put our teams in danger to turn around and maximize the situation. Now, excuse me, what sense did any of that just make? I had trouble making sense out of 90% of everything that Tim Coop said. We are monitoring weather 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with live weather updates. Now, I'm going to repeat what Tim Coop said because I really want you to pay attention to what he says throughout all of this. They're asking, how is the weather going to impact your searches? And he says, the projected forecast here for the next 24 to 48 hours will change our approach. It will not change our aggressive approach. The only thing that this will change may be what terrain we approach at this time due to severe thunderstorms. We can't put our teams in danger and maximize the situation. We are monitoring weather 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with live weather updates. Now pay attention to this on that one. June 23rd, 2021, WCYB News. Reporter states that they've now passed the 1 week mark since Summer's disappearance. Hundreds of rescuers from more than 80 agencies still part of the rescue operation. Now remember, Equisearch is in the area at the time too. And TBI states that they are now more desperate than ever to find her since all of the leads have come up empty. Yesterday marked 1 week since the statewide Amber Alert was issued. Search crews state that they are slowed down by Monday night's weather, but they state that they have searched nearly 3,000 acres, which is nearly a 5-mile search radius. 82 agencies have responded in search. With no signs of the missing girl, search efforts are now being shifted down to a more specialized team-based search, which means it might not look like many officials are searching, but that doesn't mean that they've quit searching. All right, so in 1 week, they had already scaled down their searching, okay? They had to stop searching Monday night because of the weather. When you write down all these acres that they say that they've done in this short amount of time span, between a.m. and 8 p.m. every day, you're going to see something that I'm talking about. So you got to go back through, and that's why I wanted to do this in a so that it could be in a transcript form, and that y'all could go back and look and see the variations and make up your own mind what you think. Okay. Already talking about scaling down the search, and they're getting that cart before the horse and making sure that everybody knows that just because you don't see any people out there, we're still searching. That's basically what they're saying. Tim Coop is aired saying the following: every day, whoopsie, hit the wrong button here. Every day we will have search teams, whether it be canine, specialized man tracker, to go back, note that word, back, into these areas. Once we get all these people out, it may make this area calm down a little bit, and we will have people in the Beach Creek community from one end to the other working tirelessly day in and day out. And I'm going to read that all over again because this is amazing to me. Every day, we will have search teams, whether it be canine specialized man tracker, to go back into these areas. Once we get all these people out, it may make this area calm down a little bit, and we will have people in the Beach Creek community from one end to the other working tirelessly, day in and day out. All right. Those people he's talking about getting out are your search crews. Those people that they're talking about are the search crews. Getting those people out. And I'm going to read it again. Every day, we will have search teams, whether it be canine, specialized man tracker, to go back into these areas. Once we get all these people out, it may make this area calm down a little bit, but we will have people in the Beach Creek community from one end to the other working tirelessly day in and day out. Now he goes on to say, keeping fresh crews coming in and still continue to search until we find Summer. Reporter goes on to say that officials are still asking for the Beach Creek community's help searching properties on their land that Summer could possibly be hiding in. And they say to keep in mind that areas the size of a laptop she could be hiding in. So right there, they're saying that they're going to cut it back and they're going to search tirelessly from one end of Beach Creek to the other. All right. Now, y'all pay attention because it just gets worse from here on out. June 24th, 2021, WBIR Channel 10. Leslie Earhart. She tells us that the status of Summer's case is the same, and it has been 1 week and 2 days since she went missing. She speaks of TBI in Hawkins County, continues to work alongside the FBI to learn about what happened to Summer, but are unable to give information in order to protect the integrity of her case. She states that numerous residents and members of the family have been interviewed, surveillance videos and photos viewed, and other potential digital evidence. They are still working to identify everyone in the area of that afternoon in June. She states that this case is definitely outside of the norm, as normally at this point they would have some idea as to where the case is headed and what might have happened. Despite their efforts, the case remains unclear. She asks for information from those who may not have given information already to please come forward by calling TBI. Ronnie Lawson speaks, and he immediately begins talking about social media. This is 1 week and 2 days. And he speaks of those folks. Where do you think he was getting all that bad talk about social media, guys? Who was doing that with Don Wells? Too. Just think about that. Who was in Lawson's ear? Lawson immediately begins talking about social media and speaks of those folks as being absolutely useless unless those people who are 100% positive calls 1-800-TBI fine. It means nothing. He states law enforcement is monitoring, law enforcement is monitoring all social media and everything that everyone puts out on social media, interviews that social media people do, and so on. He wanted to clear up that a couple of days earlier, he had asked for the public to not help. Oh, wait, I'm going to stop right there. He's talking about social media. Well, who deletes their lives as soon as they do them? Who do you know that started doing that? That started deleting and removing all their lives or anything to have to do with summer. Those that, leave their lives up or transparent, there's not people awake during the night. Most lives are done between what, 9, 10, 11, 12, and throughout the night. You know, do you honestly think that Hawkins County has somebody up all night long looking at your social media account, especially a certain person's? Nope. Well, it was fine and dandy when it was still up and it could be viewed the next day, right? But once it all started disappearing, that's not quite the case. Okay, let's go on because this is just a week and 2 days in, guys. And I'm going to take a break in a few minutes and run downstairs, hit my cigarette, 2 puffs like I always do, and check on my grandson, make sure everything's fine down there. And I'll be back because we're only 16 pages in of 42. So it's going to be a long one, y'all. And I can use the restroom or do whatever units. But I'm going to finish this one up real quick. So anyway, he was talking about social media. And then he said that he wanted to clear up that a couple of days earlier, he had asked for the public not to help them in their search in the woods and stuff. And that is because we know where every searcher is, where every team is, and the captain and his staff. They're tracking everyone. So if we get the general public in the woods, we don't know about it, and they're going to get missed when they go home and don't go home. This man is so well versed, it's pathetic. But it's sad. That's exactly how he spoke. Okay. We'll say it again. So if we get the general public in the woods, we don't know about it. And they're going to get missed when they go home and don't go home. So it's going to be somebody else that we have to generate time and information, resources to find. What I did ask for, and I still need, is all the people in Upper Beech Creek and Hawkins and Sullivan's to search their property again and again. You got to look for a small child. You have to look for evidence of a small child's bin. And if you've got field cameras, if you've got security cameras, we need you to check those and keep checking them. We're trying to find every vehicle in this holler they're living in since we started this. And then he speaks of the roadblock that they did earlier in time, and nothing came of that. That was the roadblock that they didn't even install for a long time, remember? He repeats that he wants the general public to search their buildings, barns, hayfields, and reminds all that it is mowing season and they need to pay attention when they mow. Now, remember the other video, the other day when he looked back at the truck, the red truck with the mowed up bales of hay, right? And he didn't even notice it. So he goes on to talk, but people were talking about it, okay? And so he goes on to say that if you are unable to search your own property, they will be glad to do that for you by sending an officer out to do it. So say you have 18 acres, they're going to send you one officer to go out there and search. This officer might not have any searching skills whatsoever, walking around in the heat with a vest on, protective vest in the heat. Yeah, that officer is going to be really inclined to do a thorough search job. In their, uniform. Right. So anyway, we'll send an officer out to do that. He spoke of some of the residents becoming frustrated at seeing the officers, but they have had very intense operations all week long for 9 days now. See that? All week long for 9 days. A week is 7 days, Ronnie Lawson. It's not 9 days. He spoke of some of the residents becoming frustrated at seeing the officers, but they have been very intense operations all week long for 9 days now, and they are not done yet because it's about finding summer. So who was he's saying that the residents are becoming at seeing the officers, right? He doesn't tell you why those residents were frustrated for seeing the officers. So when this first came out, it caused me to think that, residents didn't want anyone on their property, didn't want them messing around. And that probably was the case for some residents, as we've heard from certain people. Okay. But keep that in mind because we're going to double back around and it's going to mean a completely different thing in a few more minutes. Captain Tim Coop speaks, and he begins by telling how many agencies, manpower, and dogs have been out and their efforts used to search for summer. That they have searched now 4.6 square miles thus far. He said that they have neighbors saying that they are covering the same ground. And he admits that they are. He states that search efforts will continue in a more specialized team basis throughout the rest of the week and that folks might not see searchers in such a large presence, but rest assured that they're still out there searching for summer. He states that they will continue to work with Hawkins County, TBI, FBI until they find summer wells. Now, what did he just tell you? That they've searched 4.6 square miles already, right? And that neighbors are complaining that they're searching the same areas over and over and over, and he admits that they are. So how can you are you counting the same areas over and over and over? Is that how you're getting all those miles? Because according to many locals, that wasn't done that way. It's been told to us that it was a radius. It's not what's being told. It's not what people are saying. That's not what people were saying then. That they were searching the same areas over and over and over and over. That's 110 and a couple other places. Okay. So the only thing that I can come up with is that they were counting the same areas over and over and over. And that was their square miles. It just doesn't make any sense any other way. So, goes on to say that I gotta find my spot here again. He asked that everyone search their property and says that she could wad up and hide in an area the size of a legal size piece of paper or a folded up laptop could go. He points again to the heavily wooded area behind him and says it is a small percentage that the wooded, dense area behind him is a small percentage of what the searchers have searched through. He talks about how the men are tired and they will not quit. The reporter asks if they've searched the fields, notice, not dense terrain, fields. Because they know where these searchers were searching. That's their job. Reporter asks immediately if they've searched the fields over and over, and Tim Coop replied in his own words as follows: yes, over these 4.6 square miles, there are some of these areas we have covered 4, 5, and 6 times. We have community members, media outlets reaching out going, well, we have neighbors saying you're covering the same ground. We are. New ground, same ground, different eyes, fresh bodies. Now, if you have agencies coming in from out of town, out of state, they've left their families, they're not getting paid, some of them, they're going to get frustrated if you keep going over the same ground. Doesn't matter how many fresh eyes you want to put out there. If you are walking the same ground over and over and over and over 5, 6 times, what do you expect to find when you've trampled the area? It's pathetic. All those people that came from all those areas were wasted. They were wasted, you guys. Their efforts, their talents, their skills were wasted. Even Equisearch. And let's continue. Guys, this is Tim Coop speaking. Guys, one flat-looking field. There's 100 places people could be hid. Evidence and or she could be hid. You know why he mentioned that? Because there was a photo of them walking through a flat field, and that was one of the areas that was searched multiple times. That's why he said that. He knew, they knew what he was handing out was BS. So yes, we have covered multiple ground multiple times, and we will continue to do so. Captain Coop continues and speaks of setting up an account for general public to give money towards a reward fund, but that they are running on limited resources at the time without interfering in the search for summer wells. So basically, he's talking about a reward fund, but he's also tossing out there that the Churchill rescue effort needs money too. Y'all pay attention to that sentence and what's going on here with that reward, that marathon stuff and everything. The reward, not the marathon, whatever it is, the marathon. And I'm going to read that again. He speaks of setting up an account for the general public to give money towards a reward fund, but that they are running on limited at the time without interfering for summer wells. Take of that what you will. Reporter asked if Leslie thinks Summer is still alive, and she said she just doesn't know, but hopes so. They are holding out hope and doing everything they can. Typically, they would have found a child at this stage in the investigation, so they just don't know. They can't release any information other than what they have already, but they know that supposedly, they used the word supposedly, with family members outside of her home, was seen going in the home when her mother went to check on her and she was not in the house. Reporter asked Sheriff Lawson. So right there you have TBI, Leslie, saying that supposedly that all happened, okay, on June 15th. And she wouldn't have used the word supposedly. She's very, very careful with her wording. Reporter asked Sheriff Lawson if they had had to get a search warrants, and he stated that his office has not obtained any search warrants, but that he doesn't know if other agencies. Why did he make it a point to state that he didn't know what other agencies are doing if his agency is the lead? He was asked if anyone has taken lie detector tests, and Leslie steps up quickly and stated that they do not discuss that, but use it as a tool. She was asked if cadaver dogs were used, and she stated that they had been used. She went on to say the agents and officers have been at the Wells home to touch base with them on a daily basis, and that the family continues to cooperate. She was asked about the timeline of Summers going missing, and Leslie stated that nothing more than what they had already originally spoken about, that the family reported her missing, and they called the sheriff's office around 6:30. Prior to that, it was early afternoon when she was last seen, and they searched for a little bit and then reported her missing. Now I'm going to repeat that, okay? She was asked about the timeline for Summer going missing, and Leslie stated that nothing more than they had originally, that the family reported her missing. They called the sheriff's office around 6:30. Prior to that, it was early afternoon when she was last seen, and they searched for a little bit and then reported her missing. Leslie is not stating anything that was just said to be a fact. She's repeating what the family had said, what had been information that had been given to them. That was the question. And she's repeating what the information was that they had originally been given. Reporter asked how many hours before reporting her missing, and Leslie said that she did not have that information. You know darn well she did. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop right here for a minute, let y'all take a quick break. I'm gonna run downstairs. It usually takes me about maybe 3 minutes. Let's call this the intermission. We're gonna come back and talk about June 25th. And yes, Shay, they did say that about search warrants. Ah, hang on 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back. I'm back and out of breath. Whew, my goodness, those stairs kill me. I'm telling you, I'll say it again. Y'all better quit smoking. You can be like me. But I will have to take lots of breaks. My daughter had major oral surgery today. Um, they had to go in through the roof of her mouth because a root went up to the tooth they needed to extract, grew up through her sinus cavity. So um, she just got home. I was shocked when I came down and saw her. I didn't think she had gotten home yet. I didn't hear her come in. Um, so I will be jumping off, and checking on her to make sure that she's still numb right now, but how it's going to go. So, but anyway, let me look and see where everybody's at. High crimes have consequences. Crazy Italian lady, plant diva. I hope I haven't missed anybody. Little Wing. Toaster oven. Hi. Hi, Michelle. Hi, was his. Oh, gosh. Almost. I better stop scrolling because I almost put Lisa Kindheart in. I almost messed you up, Lisa. If you just got blocked or something, let me know because I accidentally hit a button. I sound like Jody Sue. Oh my God. All right. Hi, Izzy. How are you doing, sweetie? Um, Lisa, can you write in chat and let me know that you're okay, that I didn't just mess up? Hi, Small Fries. If you're still in here, Lisa Kindheart, please. I'm going to stress out now thinking I've done something to you there. My finger on my phone. I'm dangerous. Hi, Duchess. Hi, Chrissy. All right, so I'm going to get back to this. For those that are just coming in or came in recently, I'm trying to do a sort of a timeline so that folks can go back after the live is done and have a transcription of sorts. I didn't take all of the news articles. I paraphrased some areas to shorten the time, and I didn't do every single channel. So several channels would, different news channels would speak on the same day. I chose the ones that gave the most information, and but I want people to pay attention to the search part of it and the amount of area that they claim to have searched and all of that. And I wanted it in a format so that people could easily go back and when they're searching for something and be able to have it in some kind of way that they could quickly find it without having to Google. And often when you're watching the videos themselves, the information just kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and you don't absorb everything. And so I think everybody needs to go back to the beginning with these search efforts and pay more attention to what was done and what was said and all of that, because there are a lot of locals that say that things weren't done the way they said they were. And hi, Squires, and hi, Prissy Missy. Hi, Candalee. Did Lisa come back in, guys? Oh, I'm scared to touch my phone. Oh God, Lisa, I hope I didn't do anything to you. I'm gonna stress out, y'all. I clicked away from the thing, but I never know if that works. I'll try to keep an eye over there to see. Yeah, she commented up above. I was scrolling up trying to see everybody's name, and I hit her name, but I didn't hit anything that said, thank you, Squire. I didn't hit anything that said, like block her or add her as a moderator. I clicked out of it, up on the screen. I hope that was good enough. All right. So this is June 25th, 2021, and it's WJ. I always get this wrong. So if I'm saying the name wrong, WJHL News. Leslie Earhart is at the podium and states the following. Um, Normally, in an investigation like this one, we have some idea of where the investigation is headed and what might have happened within a few days. Despite doing everything and exploring all avenues, the circumstances remain unclear. Reporter speaks and states that search teams and investigators are exhausted but remains hopeful. Now, the reporter that I'm talking about here is the reporter doing the news broadcast, not a reporter, talking to Leslie. Okay. The news channel airs at this moment a previously recorded tape of Leslie Earhart at this time, and Leslie approaches the podium again, and a regular reporter asks if this, at this point, the investigation, if she believes that Summer's still alive. Now, we've already talked about that one. So right now they're going to discuss one that we've already gone over. And she replies, "We hope so, but we just don't know. We typically would have found a child at this stage in the investigation." The reporter for the the news reporter for the channel states that Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson again made a plea to those who live in the Beech Creek, Sullivan, and Hawkins County to check and recheck their camera footage. And then they air a previously recorded segment where Lawson asked the general public to search and research their properties, their barns, their fields, and speaks of it being mowing season. And when they mow, that they need to pay attention. If there is a resident that cannot search on their own, to call the sheriff department and an officer will be sent out to search for them. Call 423-272-4848. Again, I'm going to repeat that phone number in case anybody needs it. 423-272-4848. Now remember the 423 Chase business, the guy, and it was big to do made because, Summer's little favorite guy was, the little dog. Well, the area code is 423, y'all. The reporter speaks again and states the following: 106 agencies now, y'all. 106 agencies are participating in the search. At this point, the channel airs a video of a line search in a field. A field. I'm going to repeat it. A field that was being done in a field today, the 25th of June, 2021, in the Beech Creek area near where Summer was last seen. He continues to say that the purpose of these searches is to ensure that every inch of the ground has been covered about 4 points, which is about 3,000 acres. Captain Tim Coop stated that they have covered multiple ground multiple times using different eyes and different search teams in case they discover something that someone else did not notice. Now remember, some of those grounds were covered 5-6 times. June 29th, 2021, WJHL News interview with both Candace and Don Wells. And I didn't do the entire video interview, guys, and I know that we all know it, but let's go over it anyway. Candace states that she knows Summer did not walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Now, Jody Sue just recently used the word lured, and when she did it sent me right back to this interview. All right. I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to even repeat what she said because I don't want to get off on that subject. But my mind immediately rushed back to that sentence. I have read this stuff and I know it all verbatim, guys. I've seen it so many times. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. So I said, okay. And I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen. The boys were watching TV, and I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back and I asked the boys, where's your sister? And they said, she's downstairs, Mom. She went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check. And she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. Now, this video is listed as a full interview. It's obviously spliced, guys. There's many, many, many splices within this video. So the newsroom did not air the full, edited interview. You don't hear there is only a couple times that you hear the reporter ask her questions. So when you listen to that video, take that in consideration that it might make these people sound and look a certain way, but it was, they were responding to what was being said at the time, but that's clipped out. Okay. So I believe at this point, the reporter asked, it's not on the video, but in my heart, in my mind, in the way I interpret this, I believe the reporter had asked her at this point about the dispatch call saying that, she went on a walk or a run, right? Because immediately after she says, and you see the splice in the tape, she was just gone. And then there's a splice. And she says, I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even coyotes that are around here. Well, and then there's another splice. And then she goes, well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound. And Don speaks up and he says, just turn, the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I don't know, seems kind of elusive. So right there, Don is replying to a question that was the reporter asked, but it's not said. So it makes it sound like, what in the hell is he talking about, right? Candace speaks up and says, and I believe at this point they're talking about the red truck. And but that's just my assumption. I have no proof of that. Because the reason why I think that is because Candace speaks up and says, it's really strange that I've never seen this truck and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, note the word, who has a red truck, who's been driving red trucks, who's considered a suspect, Candace says. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. And then a splice in the video, and she goes, she was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me, and the boys did. Don speaks up and he says, they're kind of speaking over each other at this point. And he goes, she tried to shave herself. Don continues to say, as Candace spoke over him, and make it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head too, so she wouldn't feel bad. And but it didn't bother her at this point. Okay. So they conflicted with each other at this point, talking about how and why Summer's head was shaved. I found that odd. It could be exactly what they said. It could have been a punishment, could have been lice, could have been a number of things, but the boys didn't have their hair shaved, and neither did Don. And It could be a whole lot of things. And so I found that one odd. Well, he goes, well, I knew right away that she was abducted. I knew that right away. And that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word. And Candace speaks up and says investigation. And Don repeats the word investigation. They have to do step at a time, I guess, Don said. And he continued to say that he was sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. I just wish there was some way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses. You know what he's saying there? He's saying that he wished he could go in his neighbors' houses and search, because that's what he's saying. He wishes neighbors could search neighbors' houses, right? He's feeling sorry for all the rescuers looking through the woods and all that. But this is what I'm talking about. Read between the lines. Jody Sue was famous for doing that too, talking to people through her computer screen, right? And I believe at this point, that's exactly what's happening a little bit here. He says, I just wish that there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses. And then if they're not willing, get a search warrant, something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. I think he threw the eastern United States in there just so that, kind of clean up the fact that he wanted to search a couple of his neighbors' houses. And then he goes on to say, just thankful the person or persons that's doing that, out of love. Candace speaks over Don at this point and says, appreciate it. And Don continues to say, trying to get information and trying to get her found. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. Candace speaks over Don again and says, it means a lot. And Don continues to say, and we thank everybody that's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady. And we just want her back. Okay. That bothered me too. I mean, I'm picking the sentence apart to death there, but it bothered me. Of course, they would want her back, you know, but the way he said it and what he had said previously, searching the neighbors' houses, right? And we just want her back. Yep, there's always going to be haters, and it's always going to be that way in this world. And we just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer. And we want to thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And that's the kind of people we try to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about no red truck. And he just circled all the way around, mentioned he wanted to search houses, and he's back to the red truck. So we don't know anything about no red truck, or we hardly know or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to be around good people. I mean, and then he tries to clean it up by saying, I mean, we do have good people in this area. We found out since this all happened. So first he's saying the red truck, then he's saying you don't hang out with anybody in that area. They only try to hang out with good people. And then he says that he found out that there's some good people around them after someone went just, missing. So I think that's kind of telling right there. Candace speaks up and says, the most important thing is to bring Summer home safe. The film is cut again, spliced, and it goes on with Candace saying, I'm sorry you feel this way about us. So, it didn't just run on. So there was some things said by the reporter and everything, and that was all spliced out. It continues with Candace saying, I'm sorry you feel this way about us, but we love our children with everything we have. We've never went without thanks to Summer's daddy and my husband. He's always provided for us and he's worked as much as he could and can and still is. And I'm sorry that you guys feel that way, but that's my baby and nobody would ever treat her like that as long as I was around. Ever. Okay? That sentence always bothered me. Again, the film is spliced, yet the title of the interview states full interview. Dawn says, she loves to dance. She's always wanting me, would say, Daddy, hold my hand so I can twirl. And she would. She would just like twirl and twirl and twirl until my arm got tired. And he acts it out, and you see him drop his arm down, like he's really, really tired. And he says, and I put out there one of Summer's favorite songs was Godzilla, and they're like jumping all over me about past tense. And she was, well, and then he makes a big sigh at this point and his body sags. And he says, I'm sorry about that. And Candace speaks up and says, she also liked by New Breed called House, My House. She sung that a lot of times when I'd play it on the TV. She loved to dance, Dawn said. She liked to think of herself as a princess and, like all young girls do. Candace said, she loved Frozen. She loved to be that Elsa. And Candace is a little strange because Candace is like looking off in the distance, and is like she's talking about someone in a very strange way. When you look at the way Dawn is talking, it's different. Dawn is talking and it sounds like grief. When you listen to Candace talk, it's like Summer has become this special entity. You know what I mean? It's different. They're both different. And she says, she loved Frozen. She loved to be that Elsa. And Dawn said, and I think she loved to be in church because she has a lot of love there. And I found that odd too. He knew that Summer was seeking love elsewhere. And I think you can't explain what that love is, but you feel it and you know it. You know when you're young, and she felt that there. She loved everybody in that church, or she loves everybody in the church. I guess I should rephrase that because everyone will tear that apart as past tense, and I apologize again for that. I hope she gets to come home, and I hope she gets to be with her church family again. Candace speaks up and says, her best friend in that church was Robin. She loved her to death. Dawn says, she looked up to women that were. Candace interrupts him and says, she come to that church, she went looking for Robin. That was her favorite person. Dawn said, any woman that was professional. Candace speaks up and says, was pretty. And Dawn agreed and said, she looked up to those kind of women. Candace rolled her eyes at that point. Dawn continues to say, I can't think of the word for it, but she looked up to those kind of women. The film is spliced again, and Dawn said, she'd give them a run for their money. So right there shows you that there was questions about Summer's personality or something because they aren't talking about the same subject at this point. And she says, Dawn said she'd give them a run for their money, speaking of the boys, and Candace laughs, and Dawn continued with, I mean, every day. She'd give them a run for their money. And there was times, where we'd be like, they're boys. And we'd be like, don't do this and don't do that. And, a stick would come up and just wallop them, Summer, don't do that. Candace speaks up and says Summer was the boss of the family. And she's like proud of it, right? She just beams when she's saying it. Candace was, Summer was boss of the family. And Dawn says, typical girl. And Candace continued with, They'd get out of line and she'd put them in line. Don said, she'd do her best. Candace said, she loved to play in the mud, in the water, and swing on the swing and enjoy dirt. Don speaks up and said, when I run the lawnmower around, she would run behind me. The boys would run their bikes around, and she, as fast as that little bike would go, she'd be behind them running and keeping up with them, no problem, you know. She loved to run. She just loved to run. She could pull herself up on that swing, her full body weight with her two hands, and she could do that. And none of the other boys, other notice that. None of it might have been a slip up, but it jumped at me, okay? And none of the other boys could do that, but she can. The reporter asked if she was in school yet, and Dawn said no, she was going this year. And Candace spoke up and said no, this was supposed to be her first year in kindergarten. Dawn said, we did all the what? And he turns and looks at Candace, who said, I took her and everything. I had her taken all of her shots and registered in school for ready for this year. Video is spliced again, and Don is now speaking, and he states, I just never expected for anyone to get a hold of my heart like she has, because I try to guard my heart as much as I can. But she holds my heart in her little hands, and I love her with all my heart. I'd do anything to have her back. If there's any way, now here he starts talking into the camera, and I've said this from day one this interview aired. He was speaking through this interview. And if he's taken part or has knowledge, this was his way of trying to say what he was trying to say. Okay. And so I'd do anything to have her back. If there's any way you can find it in your heart to please release her somehow. I don't know how you might do that. I mean, because you're probably scared of going to prison for the rest of your life and everything else, I'm sure. But please find it in your heart, have mercy, and find a way of letting her go and where we can get her back. Just please have mercy on her, you know, and us and her brothers. To me, I don't know about y'all, he was asking for his daughter to be released. Now, if this was like a planned abduction or something like that, he's trying to tell the people, sorry, this ain't working out, but, you know, like just dump her on the side of the road, find a way, let her go. You know what I mean? I don't know how it's going to happen, because they were probably, if it was a planned abduction and the family was involved, they were probably terrified that Summer was going, if she was able to speak, tell people what in the hell happened, that she would be interviewed at this point. You see what I mean? By LE, CPS, you know, and that she would tell people who she was with. And so, you know, she was now a liability, so to speak, if that was what happened. If not, then he's sitting there just begging, you know, hey, just bring her back. You know, I don't care who it is, whatever, bring her back. So anyway, he goes on to say, she's such a loving, good spirit. Please don't hurt her. Please let her come home. Video is once again spliced, and Don is speaking again. And he said, my biggest fear is, you know, her being tormented or locked in a dungeon or a basement or something, because she loves to be outside all the time. Unfortunately, her downfall, because a lot of times the boys would be inside and we'd be like, where's Summer? Why'd you leave her alone? You know, go get Summer now. And that's happened over and over again. Now, I'm going to explain what I see in that message, right? I mean, in that little section right there is, he's a father. If he's innocent, he's a father, and he's sitting there thinking about all the horrible things that could be happening to his kid. If he was involved in a planned abduction gone wrong, he's still thinking what's happening to his kid. You know, what is going on? She wouldn't be able to go outside and play because she'd be seen. somebody would see her, interact with her. She might tell, you know what I mean? So he's saying that she would probably be kept inside all the time and not be able to go outside and play, right? Okay. And so he goes, he's talking about his kids, going outside, and everybody was like, oh God, he's blaming the boys being a babysitter. No, I fuss my family out over my grandson all the time. Did you lock the door? Did you turn the alarm on? Did you this? Did you that? And if somebody forgets, then I chastise them. That's just the way people are in their families. Don't leave Summer outside. You're not supposed to leave Summer outside. She's supposed to come in with you. You don't leave Summer out alone. What are you doing? Go get her. So I really didn't see a whole lot in that as others did. I may eat my words someday. And so he goes, he says it happened over and over again about the boys leaving her outside alone. And he says, and we'd come right out and we'd come out and she'd be close by, but we was always coming up. She had to be outside. So that sentence bothered me because he was saying we was always coming up and she had to be outside. So to me, it sounded like that Summer was outside often alone. And if Summer was outside often alone, then that means that anybody that visited around there would know that Summer was outside often alone. He goes on to say she was an outdoor person. Candace said she loved to be outside. Dawn said, I'm so afraid that she is locked away. She's such a loving heart and everything. I'm so afraid that she won't be able to, locked away where she won't be able to go outside or play with a puppy or anything. Love nature, and that's my greatest fear is that she's not able to do any of those things. And Candace speaks at the same time. And to me, it sounded like she said it could be a lot worse. Dawn continued with that she could be, she could possibly be, I don't want to think that she's dead, but it's a possibility. Candace at this point has a visible reaction to that, and Dawn continues to say, I don't want to address the negativity. I just want to focus on the positive. And Candace says, find our daughter. And Dawn said it is so easy to get lost in that negativity and stuff, and it's just not worth it. And so I ended it at that point because that's really basically all I really wanted to talk about on that. So on July 13th, 2021, WATE 6 on Your Side News reporter begins by saying that Summer Wells went missing on June 15th, 2021 from her Hawkins County home. She talks about over 900 tips. So on July 13th, there were over 900 tips have come in so far, and nothing has led to Summer. Sheriff Lawson begins to speak, and he says, right now, everything is still on the table, and they are still trying to find out what happened this summer, and everybody is still a person of interest. He states that they are still looking for help from the landowners, too, and he wants them to go back and check their trail cameras, their security cameras, every day, especially around the time that she disappeared. And this is July 13th, okay? Did he expect this child to be wandering all this time with no food, no water, in the summer heat, still on July 13th? Okay. The reporter goes on to say that the search has come at a cost. Pay attention to that. Search has come to a cost. And the leaders of Hawkins County are concerned about how to fund the sheriff's department and other departments as search efforts have been scaled back. Jason Roach, Hawkins County Commissioner, speaks in a short interview and states that Summer's search has really exposed the weaknesses of their first responders' practice, because when they have a search this big and this much energy is going into finding this child, any shortfalls that they might have will be exposed. The reporter picks back up and says that money is headed into this fiscal year on a $2 million deficit and plans to make up the money from the reserve fund. Now, y'all pay attention to all of that. July 19th, 2021, Equisearch's Facebook page. Our Equisearch Midwest, that's July 19th, our Equisearch Midwest team will once again be assisting in the effort to locate little summer wells. Dave Rader, director of Equisearch Midwest, and our team will be conducting searches the weekend of July 24th. As this is an ongoing investigation, if you see any of our teams out and about, please do not convey via social media or other outlets where you may have seen our searches taking place. It is very important for the integrity of the case. Now, Shay, you posted Jody Sue's post on Facebook, I believe it was, or it was her community tab. It had to be Facebook. It was Facebook. She didn't have YouTube at the time. So you posted last night when you and Lean on Me were doing the live, Jody Sue's screenshot where she's dissing Equisearch and where they had searched and all of that. Well, Jody Sue's ignorant, all right? So I'm just going to put that out there real quick. Very ignorant. So anyway, let's continue. As this is an ongoing investigation, if you see any of our teams out and about, please do not convey via social media or other outlets where you may have seen our searches taking place. It is very important for the integrity of the case. Our searches will only be for our Texas Equisearch members at this time. We've decided to make it public about the dates since it would have gotten out that we were in town. Some of our vehicles are hard to miss, so we thought we'd be proactive and just give a heads up. Okay. All right. So to make a long story short, there was some issues after Equisearch went out there because, like I said earlier, Tim Coop, usually Equisearch would be able to go search any place they wanted to, and they would be given information by law enforcement, as to what had been done, where the case was headed, and all of that. Well, that information was not shared with Equisearch when it came down either time. All communication that Dave Rader had was via Tim Coop of the rescue squad. He didn't get to communicate with any law enforcement. He was only in communication with Tim Coop. It was Tim Coop who told them where they could search. Okay. There was some dispute over the fact that Equisearch got out of their vehicle. So I guess Tim Coop just wanted them right up and down damn road or down paths or whatever, because there was some issue over the fact that, they got out of their vehicles. And so if you look back at some of the pictures of the searches, once it was no longer a grid search and it was the specialized Tim Coop searches, where it was just one or two individuals with a dog, that was his specialized searching out and about. Usually they were on a path. When that Brandon spoke with JLR, he said when LE came through the woods in his area, they were on a path. I don't know how many people expect to find a body laying in the middle of a path. But with Brian Laundrie, the same kind of stuff was going on. We sat and watched him from aerial video of just driving down paths. And, it's just, I don't know. Anyway, I could go all day complaining about that. Anyway, July 19th, 2021, Dave Rader on duty, Ron's channel. Ron asked, and I want y'all to go to his channel and listen to the entire video, okay? Because I'm not doing the whole thing. Ron asked Dave Rader, the operational director of Equisearch, what the mission will be for Saturday's upcoming search. And what does Equisearch have to offer that the law enforcement does not have to offer? All right, so Equisearch had just said on their Facebook page that they were coming into town, so that they have jobs. They work during the week, regular jobs. So their searching is done on holidays and weekends, right? So that means that these members have to drive from wherever they're at, which would be driving all day Friday to search Saturday, if they're just doing a weekend, and then turn around, drive home on Sunday. Okay, I want to make that clear. Equisearch has to, what Equisearch has to offer that law enforcement does not have to offer. And Dave responded that law enforcement was not designed to do what Equisearch does, as law enforcement is designed to investigate, not search. Dave speaks of budget and manpower issues and how Equisearch is not paid. Their work is done free via donations to their organization. So therefore, they are not a drain on the Hawkins County budget. Now, Hawkins County said, Tim Coop said that they had all these other agencies coming in, right? That was donated as well. So where was all this money coming from out of their budget? Because their officers were still doing the investigative part. And unless they only had a few officers that were getting overtime, then I'm really at a loss as to what was going on. Now, I know that, there has to be fuel, but as I understand it, even that was donated, and I could be wrong. Budget complaints was already an issue at this time. This is me talking concerning the search for Summer Wells by both Sheriff Lawson as well as Tim Coop. So one would think that organizations like Equisearch would be a blessing to the county. You have to remember that many of the deputies and officers from both Hawkins and Sullivan County would have been paid overtime for the time that they spent searching for Summer. That alone is a huge drain on the budget allotted for a sheriff's department. And then Ron speaks of the budget meeting that we've all seen, and I didn't do that one. Angel Talks Too Fast has done that, and how the county is being stretched thin, trying to pull from other areas of the budget to fund the search, and how the public was upset about the budget issues that were at hand. Again, this is where I say that organizations such as Equisearch should have been utilized to the fullest extent possible and continued to do so. The public is more apt to donate to those organizations and fund the searches, as they have witnessed the outcome of their donations. Bill Cannon of Police Off the Cuff joins the panel at this time and is introduced to Dave Rader. Ron asked Dave, what day did they first arrive to search for Summer? And Dave replied that Summer went missing on June 15th, 2021, and reported about 6:40 that evening. Dave said that the organization reached out on the 17th of June to see if they could assist. On the Saturday, 19th of June, around 5 that evening, and was asked to be ready to go on Sunday morning, the 20th of June, 2021. So if they were contacted at 5 on Saturday and be told to be ready to go on Sunday, that didn't give these people a whole lot of driving time, right? I mean, they would have had to, some people would have driven through the night with no rest, nothing. It was also some problem with communication, okay? And I'm just going to leave that there, where people weren't being responded back to. And I think that plays into where Sheriff Lawson in the earlier interviews is stating that people could send, how did he say it, texts, and they wouldn't get it until later. So I think that's what Sheriff Lawson's referring to there. So anyway, was asked to be ready to go on Sunday morning, the 20th of June, 2021. Dave was able to pull about 7 people on short notice to go down to Hawkins County, and he was in town by 11 o'clock Saturday evening, the 19th of June. So right there, he's already ate up Saturday, right, by getting into town. Ron asked who had called to request the help, and Dave said Hawkins County EMA emergency manager, that being Captain Tim Coop, who was I cannot speak. Let me try again. Ron asked who had called to request the help, and Dave said Hawkins County EMA emergency manager, that being Captain Tim Coop, who was headlining the whole thing. And Dave felt at the time that Tim Coop did a hell of a job as far as putting a lot of agencies and manpower out on short notice and in real time. So, Dave was tooting Tim's horn, but Tim didn't do the same in return. And they later cleared it up, but you know how that goes. Okay. So I think there was some issues with Tim, in my personal opinion. And not just with Equisearch. Bill Cannon asked how the search was organized as far as who would take one area and who would take another, and Dave replied that at that time they, being law enforcement, were still searching around the house, thinking that Summer had walked away. Now remember what date this is, guys? Let me go back up. July 19th. And they're still searching around the house. Okay, let me get back to where I was. Still searching around the house, thinking that Summer had walked away. At that time, there was no foul play ever mentioned. And so at that time, they were breaking down into grids in and around that house. Depending upon qualifications is where a group was placed and what they were able to do. They had aviation and 5 or 6 different dog teams, and they were placing the dogs ahead of the foot searchers, and then Equisearch would go on in behind them. So you had teams following one another. Instead of spreading out your teams and covering more ground, you got teams coming in, you're going to have them follow the lead searchers. It's redundant. They were in radio contact as far as if they found anything, anyone was GPS tracked, and Dave felt that it was incredible the amount of manpower that was on that piece of property, that mountain, over the course of those 5 or 6 days that he was there. Okay. Both live track and cadaver dogs were being utilized, but they were unable to get a very good scent article from Summer's house for Summer because it appeared that everything was kind of shared. So Dave is not too sure how well that played out, but not one dog took them in any one direction. So to me, this clearly means that even though the dogs were unable to tell whose footprints or scents were whose, the dogs were unable to figure anything out. Because no matter if something was, Summer was supposed to have been in the car as well. So her scent should have been picked up from where she sat. Right? Even if they couldn't figure out anything in that house. Now, they wouldn't have had something unless they cut, a piece of the seat out. They wouldn't have had something to, kind of refresh the dog's sense along the way. But, once a dog hits on a trail, they don't need to be rescented that often. But he's stating there that they weren't able to find something in the house, to get a good scent. With the high ability to receive scent that can last for days via, this is me talking, via particles both in the air and on the ground. This tells me that the clothes were worn and possibly reworn by several kids over a course of time, and the same with shoes. Jody Sue once said in a live that she couldn't figure out why they didn't use teeth and hair. Well, Summer had not lost teeth at this point, and teeth don't give off a scent. Summer's hair was shaved to the point of her having very little hair, and it's most likely that if her hair had ever been brushed at that point, that the odds of sharing a brush in that household would have also been high. And this leads me to question what happened to the clothes that Summer was reportedly wearing that day on June 15th, such as the jacket and the bathing suit. Those alone should have given more than enough articles of scent needed in which to provide all of those dogs what was needed in order to search for Summer, especially if Summer had sat in that car, in a hot car, with windows up, in long clothes, long sleeve pants, long sleeve jacket and pants. She would have sweated. There would have been scent. And again, that's my opinion. Ron asked Dave if it was confirmed if they did bring in multiple dogs outside and inside the home, and that there has been multiple reports that some dogs got the scent to the end of the road to the house and stopped there. Is there any truth to that? And Dave replied with that from what he understands, yes, the dogs tracked to the end of the driveway, and that is where they lost it. And usually that means that they get into a car. Dave goes on to say that if you look up where this house sits, the thought of a stranger abduction does not make sense at all. He explains that it is a secluded area and that you have to come off a main road to go down their long road only to go up their long driveway. And he thinks if they were all sitting there, and all are there, that the odds of that happening are slim. And Bill asked Dave about the family's dogs, as he was curious as to how many dogs the Wells had, and Dave said that he was not sure, but there were a few. Then they went on to discuss that the dogs would make it even more difficult for a stranger to come up on the property, and Dave believes that if Summer did wander off, and he did kind of go in that direction at this time, right, that one of the dogs would have had followed her. So now, in my opinion, we now know where Jody Sue got dogs are the key, because we know that most everything she has said to date outside of the truck car door noise, the flash of red going up the driveway, the scream, and what the Wells boy allegedly told her have all been said by someone else prior. Dave goes on to say, and Jody Sue watches every single thing, as we all know, including comments made by everyone. Dave goes on to say that the hills are steep, very treacherous, sticker bushes, and we know that to be true because we saw it in the one video where Bullhorn Betty did, and she got her arm caught as she walked past an area that she was in some months back. And he goes on to say that they saw bears and a lot of copperheads. The heat was incredible and took a toll on the searchers, and I can attest to the fact that if you're in woods with a heavy canopy, that it traps the summer heat and it makes the humidity builds up and it makes it very difficult to breathe. And you can overheat very quickly if you're active. Remember when Jody Sue was complaining about how Dobbs was breathing when he was on his land and they were trying to run him off? Same thing. She was like, he was breathing like like that. You know what I mean? Even in the video where he's, out with the dog running around, you can hear his breathing. So I'm convinced that he was plus being stressed out, upset, and all that. I'm sure he did have some breathing issues that day, and that they only compounded that with the trapped heat and air and everything that. But again, if local rescue searchers were used to searching in those areas and periodic trained like twice a month. Military has to train. They have to go out in the field, do their thing. I feel the same should be required of rescue searchers. You know, you have to be able to withstand that kind of environment to do your job. He goes on to say that it was 90 degrees, and he too explains that in the shade, you would be undercover and you would think that, you know, you would be cooler, but there's no air under there. Dave goes on to explain that the organization has some of the best technology available, with some of the drones having the near infrared abilities and cost upwards to $40,000, and has the ability to see if a piece of ground has been disturbed. The drones are GPS marked, and if something is located, they can then send out search teams to that exact area. Now, you would think that Hawkins County would just like be begging these people, right? You would just, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you think that? I would. If that was my county, if I was mayor of the county, if I was sheriff of the county, I would be utilizing these people to the utmost extent possible. I would be on my phone begging them constantly. Please. I would drive them so insane that every weekend I would be begging them to come down. I would be going door to door to neighbors. Do you have any problems with us searching your land today? Do you have any problems with us searching your land today? And over a course of a year and a half, I would have had that entire region, that whole area, all the way out to Baileyton, Jody Sue, and beyond, everywhere, searched. But see, I'm a woman. There's a difference. Sorry, guys. So anyway, he goes on to say, they also have an underwater remote controlled sonar unit that is used that allows the human to stand to stand upon the shore, and the unit enters the water, which helps to keep divers out of the water. That's absolutely fantastic, guys. That keeps the, you know, divers safe from, you know, snakes, water snakes, alligators, and so on. Now, remember, Brandon didn't even want to go over to the creek because of the snakes in the interview that he did with JLR. But Jody Sue says she traveled all of it, you know, right? Okay. So Dave goes on to talk about a team that's based in St. Louis who have recovered over 105 bodies from water. Dave said the team is called Team Waters, Watters, which is one of the best water searching teams in America. So if you guys are not aware of them, please do check them out. They were not part of search. They should have been. But remember, Sheriff Lawson said Summer wasn't in the water, and that's what allegedly was told to Adventures with Purpose. They knew Summer wasn't in the water. Don't know how they came to that conclusion, but that's what was said. And so, but anyway, the full organization for that team that Dave Rader is speaking about is Team Waters, Sonar Search and Recovery, Inc. Their phone number is 618-037-704767. And their address is listed in, I believe it's called Morrow, Illinois. I'd also like to take a moment and say I'm sorry, and very, very sorry to say that Dennis Waters, the part owner of the organization, passed away back in October of this year. And so he fought a long battle with cancer, and he leaves behind his wife and partner, Tammy. And they were a true team. And so don't know if Dave Rader is aware of that. This video was done a long time ago, guys. So I don't know if he's aware of that now. And if he hears it through me, I apologize. And so Dave is asked by Bill if Dave thinks the story told by Candace is plausible, and Dave replied, no. He was asked to expound on that, and Dave said that he does not think it's possible that Summer wandered off because the number of people that had covered that mountain and that she wasn't found. He goes on to say that after day 4, when Dave got there, with the amount of people who surrounded the mountain, there was no way that she could have gotten out of that first circle without being spotted, especially when you have a helicopter with FLIR on it. And the folks need to remember that after day 4, she had not had water or nourishment, and she would have been in dire straits, with her movement being slowed, if non-existent. All right, what he's saying there is he's talking about the first radius, right? They did. And he's talking about right when Summer went missing. He's not talking about his second trip down. He's talking about his first trip and what he experienced. And he's talking about his their first radius, law enforcement, all the agencies, the first radius that Tim Coop directed. He's saying that Summer couldn't get out of that radius, right, with the amount of people that had searched that mountain, right, and the amount of times that had been searched. But do you remember what Tim Coops was saying? That, they searched the same area over and over and over, and they would continue, okay? Now, I can't get ahead of myself, but you're going to find out about a footprint, right, in a minute, and why they extended out the search a little bit further, and the possibility that, she could have been dumped off and was now wandering in these woods by herself after the initial searches. Okay. So anyway, Dave goes on to say that when a child goes missing, law enforcement should have a search team so that all resources can be at hand immediately. And I agree with him 100%. That's what I've been saying all along. I've been saying it since before February, before I made my channel. I don't understand why it's not done. And like went on, and I'm not going to repeat myself about, bi-monthly training and, being able to withstand the rigors of the area in which they live, become familiar with terrain and all that goes into, searching the area in which they live, which, in my opinion, Churchill Rescue Squad should have had the ability to do. Dave goes on to say that he feels that all efforts should not be applied only to an area in which it was reported that a person went missing, to search other areas as well in case criminal intent is the reality. And again, I agree. As my grandmother would say, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. And he speaks on how every second, every day, evidence is lost, and it is the utmost importance to act swiftly within the first 24 hours and broaden the search. So right there, guys, like I said, and I've been saying all along, locals said where it was searched, what was not searched. Locals complained about it being repetitive, and to this day, there's large expanses of area that has not been searched, despite what one person tries to tell you. My opinion, Dave Rader knows what he's speaking about. They have retrieved 238 bodies and returned them to families, and not one of those cases had the crime scene been tainted in the process. And so Tim Coop tried to come out, we had to be careful because we didn't want anybody to taint anything. We don't want anything to be tainted. Yeah, well, Equisearch isn't just anybody off the street. He goes on to say, I go on to say, I would think that he would be the expert, not law enforcement, and not even the rescue squad. It is of my opinion that there are some bruised egos at play in the Summer Wells case. Dave went on to say that at not one time was there any mention to him that Summer may have had any special needs. Dave goes on to say that the public needs to be aware that on social media, they have to realize that Summers' case is an ongoing investigation, and it is not known at this time who all are players in this game. And if they're watching all of the social media and people are putting up maps and saying, well, they were here and they were there, and this person is watching and everything, and it allows that person to hide something, and people mean well, but some things should not be put out there, such as where the searches happened and so on. And that was being done. That was being done early on. And that's something that we as true crime community need to stop doing early on in cases. It's another thing to do stuff like that a year in or several months in. But when somebody goes missing in the very beginning, no matter what you do, no matter what your expertise is, if you're great at mapping, if you're great at searching, if you're great at picking people apart, if you're great at body language, whatever, keep it to yourself if it can mess up a case. And airing maps early on or airing areas that have, even now, I don't want to say what areas I've been told people have searched in. So that's what I'm saying. You know, there's just some things that are just not meant to be out there. And so anyway, he says that, you know, there's some things that should not be put out there, such as where searches happened and so on. And Dave mentions that he is about to return to Hawkins County to continue searching for Summer. Dave states that when he searches, he will give mapping of what they did to Tim Coop, who will then share that information with Sheriff Lawson. So what he's saying is he expects to go there and search, and then when he's done, he's going to gather all of his information and then give it over to Sheriff Lawson. And this is where the button of horns came about, because Dave Rader wasn't allowed to speak with any law enforcement. It had to go through Tim Coop. Tim Coop told him where to search when he went on his second time, and so on. And then tried to claim that Tim tried to claim that Dave Rader didn't turn his paperwork in on time. He had driven back home, slept, got up the next morning, turned in his papers, you know, all of his information. So it wasn't that he kept anything from anybody. He was driving, you know. And so anyway, here is July 29th, 2021, Equisearch Midwest Facebook. In regards to the articles, and now they're responding to the crap that Tim Coop said, right, about Equisearch. And remember, you got Jody Sue over there on her page blowing up, talking crap about Equisearch too. Guess where she got that from? Tim. All right, so in regards to the articles that are being circulated surrounding the Hawkins County, Tennessee search for 5-year-old Summer Wells, Captain Tim Coop with the Church Hill Rescue Squad stated that Equisearch Midwest was cleared by Hawkins County Sheriff's Office to search this past weekend. Dave Rader has been in constant communication with Captain Coop regarding all agendas, and Captain Coop assures him that his statements were all miscommunication with media. So in other words, Captain Coop talked a bunch of junk, got in trouble for it, and then tried to blame it all on media. Okay. And there you go, guys. And now they're trying to clean it up and, you know, make Equisearch not look bad because of somebody else's actions. And Equisearch didn't do anything wrong. So anyway, let's say that again. Captain Coop assures him that his statements were all miscommunication with media. Equisearch arrived in Hawkins County on Thursday evening and spent Friday to Sunday mapping and ground searching, arriving home Monday evening. After a very long and exhaustive weekend, all mapping / communications / field activity reports were turned over to Captain Coop for him to pass along to Hawkins County Sheriff's Office on Tuesday evening and Wednesday. Equisearch never had any intentions of, quote, keeping things to themselves, which is what Tim Coop put out. Equisearch will only take on a case if there is open communication and cooperation with law enforcement and or any lead organization involved. If any single item of importance were located this past weekend, Captain Coop and Hawkins County Sheriff Office would have been the very first to know immediately. Furthermore, any land or private property that Equisearch encounters, they have always asked landowners for permission to search first if a search warrant is not involved. Equisearch is well trained in crime scene preservation and also keeping open lines of communication with lead organizations of a search. Our many in capital letters, our many letters of recommendations can attest to this, along with our reputation of bringing the missing home. Thank you to all who have reached out regarding these falsities. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. And as always, lost is not alone. So the main gist of that is Coop got pissed off that they got out and searched properties and had been given permission to do so. And evidently he only wanted them to drive around in their cars, their vehicles, you know. So August 5th, 2021, police off the cuff YouTube channel, Bill Cannon's panel was Dave Rader of Equisearch Midwest, and Dave states that he uses dogs as a tool, but does not rely solely on them as he's not had luck with them. He speaks of how dogs are scented, and once scented, the dogs should follow the very last thing that the missing person did. His opinion is that the trail leading to the road means two things to him: that Summer was either in a vehicle when she left the house and never returned, or she went down and got into a vehicle. He also feels that live track dogs should be able to pick up a direction in which the car traveled once leaving the area. So in other words, if, pulling out of the driveway, if the car turned right, the dog's scent would have went to the right, the dog would have started going towards the right. Dave goes on to say that when he first went to Hawkins to search for Summer, he thought the search was well organized. Notice that when I first went. That he thought the search was well organized and he was given a certain geographical area in which to search. He also believes that by the time he got there the first time, which was 4 days after she went missing, that due to the heat and lack of nourishment, that she would have been moving extremely slow, or most likely staying put in one area, and he feels that she would have been located but wasn't. At this point in time, the interview that both Don and Candace did is mentioned, and all four men on the panel were in agreement that they did not feel good about that interview, particularly about Candace. They speak of how she was not living, that if she was not living, and the decomp would have been terrific and would have been picked up by both human and dog if she had been in that area that had been searched. He mentions that there were no signs of turkey buzzards either. Dave goes on to say that everything from the house to a 2-mile radius had been saturated. This is what he had been told, okay? All right, he didn't witness all of that. This is what he had been told. He speaks of the footprint that was allegedly found. He does not know the truth of that. And the searchers pondered as to whether she had been abducted and then dropped back off in the area, and that she was now walking in the woods by herself, so that They again set up another perimeter and searched again. Now, I can understand that, but 6 times? No. He returned that when have let me try again. Dave said when he returned, he did not have contact with any law enforcement. His only contact was via text with Tim Coop. Dave did not have a timeline from law enforcement, so he worked off his own theory timeline. He said the point of Summer having last been seen outside of a family member stating where she had last been seen was when they dropped the then 15-year-old Hunter off at his home. And even that isn't a proven fact, guys. Bill Cannon states that he does not believe that Summer ever made it back to her house, and Dave Rader agreed. So neither of these men think that Summer ever got back home on June 15th, 2021. All right, so next I'm going to talk about September 23rd, 2021. We're going to discuss the TBI news alert with Leslie Earhart. I've got to take a quick break and go check on my daughter, guys. I'm going to take my phone with me and take a couple of drags off my cigarette. I'm going to look through chat while I'm there. Y'all go to the restroom, do whatever you need to do, and I'll see you back here in a few minutes. We're on page 33 of 42, so we've got a little bit left to go. And you might want to take a break now if you need to. I'll be right back, guys. Be kind to each other in chat, all right? I'll see you in a minute. Hi, McBro. Hi, Be the Bean. Hi, Lean on Me. Hi, Valerie. And everybody else I've missed. I'll be back in a minute. Hi guys, I'm back. Like the numbing is starting to wear off, and she's in a lot of mouth pain. Oh, I can't stand it. I can't do mouth pain, so I can relate. It just makes me sick to even look at her right now. It just, oh God, makes me shaky feeling. All right, so where we left off was I got to get my breath. Those stairs just knocked me out. Um, September 23rd, 2021. And this is going to be Leslie Earhart with TBI News Alert. Leslie states that Summer was reported missing from her home on Ben Hill Road in Hawkins County on June 15th. Unfortunately, there are more questions than answers. Agents and detectives continue to work daily to determine what happened to Summer. Sheriff Lawson speaks up and says, "We're still looking, still searching. We're still following tips. And one thing that we need to do is preserve the integrity of this case because we can't tell everything we're doing. We can't tell everything we know. And a lot of stuff we had called on, we've already done several times." Now, this is September, guys, okay? This is September. And he's saying right now that a lot of things that people have called him about, they've already done. Leslie speaks again. And at this point, and in my opinion, it starts to seem to me when I watch them and their body language and stuff that Lawson's saying one thing and Leslie's in another direction. And I hope by me saying this doesn't cause Leslie any problems because this is just my interpretation. Okay. This is just how I see it. So Leslie speaks again and urges that people only share information from official sources. All right. The misinformation and speculation simply don't help the case. Their teams continue to sift through hundreds of tips, and most of them are rooted in rumors and bad information spread around social media. Now, I want to ask you, where were we all getting all of our information from? All of that time, right? We were getting it from the people that were getting it from a certain person, and those people were repeating it. And that's exactly how we were getting the information that we were getting in September. Okay. Happen to know that to be a fact. That a certain person was telling certain people certain things. Okay. And then there was that person's Facebook page, and that person had been very, very active on their Facebook page with all of their information. Okay, so she goes on to say, the misinformation and speculation simply don't help the case. Their teams continue to sift through hundreds of tips, and most of them are rooted in rumor and bad information spread around social media. Sheriff Lawson speaks again and says that it causes them confusion with all the tips that they get and going through. A lot of it coming off of social media. And what we want to do is get more tips that we can rely on to help us find Summer. And that's their whole goal, is to find Summer. Leslie says, "We appreciate your partnership in the search for Summer. And as much as you want answers, we want them more." And that's the end of that one. On November 11th, 2021, WJHL News. Like I said, I might be doing that WJHL News backwards because I do it constantly, guys. And it doesn't matter. I will look it up and I'll say, okay, it's this way. And then as soon as I write it, I'm writing it the opposite way the next time. So forgive me if I'm saying it backwards, because I will do it from here on out as well, no matter how many times you tell me. Reporter states that TBI states that they have conducted several search warrants and have collected any potential digital evidence, including social media accounts. This is November 11th. A whole lot of stuff went on on November 11th. Guys, a whole lot of stuff. November 11th was a very important day in Hawkins County. They continue to work alongside of Hawkins Sheriff Department and the FBI. Ansley Daniels gives a timeline of events, which is as follows. Video of Ronnie Lawson stating that Summer is missing, 5 years old, 4 foot tall, with blonde hair, last seen wearing a pink shirt and gray pants. Ansley then continues to speak and states that they launched a massive ground search the next day. Tim Coop, captain of the Church Hill Rescue Squad, is shown at this point from a previously broadcasted segment and states that they are experiencing very dense canopy coverage and dense ground cover. Ansley speaks again in the regular segment and said that there was a daily news brief for 10 days ending on June 24th, 2021. So they stopped doing their daily news briefs on June 24th, 2021. Leslie Earhart is shown from a previously aired segment saying that the case is definitely out of the norm. Ansley continues with the regular broadcast and says that 2 days after the last news brief, TBI announced that they were searching for a late model red Tacoma truck that was last seen in the area during the time that Summer went missing. So that was 2 days after that last news brief. The last news brief was June 24th, so that means June 26th, okay? 2 days after that, which would be June 28th, Candace Bly Wells did her first interview. Summer had been missing for nearly 2 weeks at that point in time. Candace Bly Wells is shown from that interview and is saying, me and my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers, and I said, okay. Ansley picks back up at this point in her regular segment and says, the day we heard from the mother was the same day the reward fund was finalized, November 11th. The reward fund was finalized. Candace Bly did her, wait a minute. Did I just mess up? No, okay. Sorry guys. Ansley picks back up at this point in a regular segment and says the day we heard from the mother was the same day the reward fund was finalized. Authorities also closed the active search. So this means she speaks of Summer being featured on the John Walsh show, and the reward fund had moved up to $40,000 in September. October 4th, 2021, Don Wells spoke with News Channel 11 111 days after Summer disappeared. Don Wells, speaking from a previously aired segment, says, I just don't feel that is right, that they're just going to give up on her in a couple months. What Don was complaining about at that time was that, the reward fund would cease and they extended it out. But anyway, Ansley returns to a regular segment and states that on October 4th, 2021, was the same day that Church Hill Rescue Squad's reward fund was extended into the following year. October 10th, 2021, Hawkins County Sheriff Office said that they were still taking tips and looking for that red truck. Both Don and Candace are then shown from a previously aired segment, and Don says, hi, this is Don and Candace Wells, and this is our YouTube channel. Ansley continues at this point with her regular segment and says, almost 4 months after their daughter was reported missing, Don and Candace Wells started a family YouTube channel and website, findsummerwells.com. Don continues to speak from an earlier video and states, we hope and pray to God that we find our daughter. We can't thank you enough. There's nothing we can do to thank you enough, but just thank you and praise our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Ansley continues with the regular segment and states, social media stardom turned to social embarrassment 2 weeks later. Don Wells was pulled over while live on YouTube and arrested for suspicion of DUI. He was later charged with probation violation and released. Also on November 11, 2021, the Dr. Phil show with Don and Candace Wells was aired. Also on November 11th was the interview with, guess who? Jody Sue Brown and her son. November 12th, 2021, Dr. Phil show with Don and Candace is also aired. Back to November 11th, 2021, WHJL News. The reporter states the following: the Wells family lived across the street from the neighboring property. And the night that Summer went missing, the neighbor swears that she and her two children heard a scream. Shortly before they joined the search, meaning all three joined the search for the now missing Summer Wells. Jody Sue Brown states the following: it was there, but you want to forget. The reporter continues to say, on the watch and hypervigilant. That's how Jody Sue Brown was the very day Summer Wells went missing. Jody Sue Brown continues, there was no TV, no noise at all. The reporter continues, Jody Sue was in her cabin with her teenage kids, 19 and 14. This is 2021, guys. So in 2021, they were 19 and 14, waiting for anything. Jody Sue Brown continues, we were kind of hyper alert because property things that happened the day before. So we were listening for noise. It was kind of quiet. The reporter continues, the sale brought a plethora of people to their door, confused about which piece of land was for sale, leading to a dispute over property lines. Jody Sue Brown continues to say, while we were out at one point doing survey lines, notice that? Survey lines. And there was a flash of a car that went Candace and Donnie's driveway. Something about it struck me wrong. The reporter continues to say, she and her family next heard a truck door slamming and dismissed it as neighbors. The next sound was harder to justify. About an hour and a half before Summer is thought to go missing, Jody Sue, her son, and her daughter heard something far more suspicious, a scream. Jody Sue Brown continues, stopped all three of us cold. The reporter goes on to say, her daughter was the first to go to the cabin door, and then all three were there listening still. Jody Sue's son, Damien, speaks and says, we heard just this kind of shrill, almost animalistic scream. The reporter continues, animalistic, but not an animal. Jody Sue Brown continues, knew it was, wrong. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't an animal. The reporter continues and says, that vigilance kicking into overdrive. Jody Sue and her son went out to look for the source of the scream. Notice that? They went out to look for the source of the scream. Jody Sue Brown continues, my son and I decided to go out and look and see what we could see. Went back onto the bank. Didn't see anything. Didn't hear anything. The reporter continues. They went on with their evening. The kids returned to being kids. Jody Sue headed down her driveway around 6 to tend to flowers. Jody Sue Brown continues, and at this point, I start hearing Candace hollering for Summer, and then my brain immediately went, scream earlier, this, uh-oh. The reporter continues. Jody Sue was the first to hear those calls and the first to join the search for Summer. Jody Sue Brown continues. I dropped the purse. I yelled up to Candace. I was like, I'm looking. And I start looking. And the reporter continues. Jody Sue searched one side of the creek, Summer's brothers the opposite side. Reporter asked Jody Sue, And you gave statements to the police, right? Tell us. And Jody Sue interrupts and says, oh, absolutely. The reporter continues with, Jody Sue had been interviewed many times by investigators, bringing up the scream often, but the sheriff doesn't believe the scream is related to the disappearance of Summer Wells. Sheriff Lawson is now on camera, and he states the following. She's been interviewed numerous times by not only my agency, but the TBI and the FBI, and we don't find anything with that complaint or information related to this case. The reporter continues and says, Jody Sue wished she could go back to just a short time before Summer disappeared and before the scream she believes was Summer. Jody Sue Brown continues, wish it every day that when I heard that scream, I hadn't tried to dismiss it. The reporter goes on to say that Sheriff Lawson said in the same week as Jody Sue's interview that his agency and the others have found absolutely no proof that an abduction has taken place. So in November, it's absolutely no evidence of an abduction, right? December 15th, 2021, Leslie Earhart, TBI Media. Leslie Earhart does an update on Summer's case and tells us that 6 months ago, 5-year-old Summer Wells was reported missing from her home on Ben Hill Road, and the case remains unsolved. The investigation remains active and ongoing. TBI, Hawkins County Sheriff's Department, and the FBI continue to work together. Investigators have executed numerous search warrants. Notice that. Investigators have executed numerous search warrants, collecting all potential digital evidence. They have spoken with everyone associated with the Wells, and in some cases more than once. This includes neighbors, acquaintances, and those working in the area the day she went missing. They have used a plane, helicopters, divers, canines, and every resource available. My stomach's growling. I apologize, guys. It's really kicking up now. The circumstances of her disappearance remain unclear. At this time, there is no evidence that she was abducted. However, all avenues continue to be explored, including foul play and the very real possibility that she wandered off and became lost in the mountainous, rough terrain surrounding her home. There you go. December, still that same old story. We are asking that anyone who saw Summer at any time on June 15, 2021, to come forward, and if they haven't done so already, we appreciate the public's ongoing interest in this case, and anyone with credible information to call 1-800-TBI-FIND. April 13th, 2022. WJHL News reporter states the following. We've walked you through what has happened since Summer Wells disappeared, but for the first time, we walk you through the day with her mother and grandmother from their perspective just hours before she was reported missing. Candace Harris speaks for the first time and states, Candace and I got up that morning. She came out and took me to the ER because my leg was messing up on me. Now, again, remember, guys, all of these interviews are spliced. Reporter continues and states, the hospital is about 25 minutes from the Wells home. Candace continues, she took me to the hospital and I ended up getting a shot for it to get rid of the pain, and they prescribed me medication. The reporter speaks again and states, Summer, her mother, and her grandmother spent the day in the closest city to their house. Candace Harrer continues, and we waited around for my prescription. Summer went swimming that day at the horse stables, I believe it was. The video pans over to a previous recorded video done earlier in time where Candace Bly Wells speaks about that day, and she says the following. Candace Bly Wells, and we were waiting on my mother's prescription from the drugstore at Walgreens on Fort Henry. Reporter speaks again and states, the three, along with a friend that Candace describes as a minor, then came swimming here at Warriors Pass State Park. That's where the last known video of Summer was taken and then posted to TikTok. Now, this is a reporter stating that. Candace Bly Wells speaks again in a previously recorded video and states, Candace Bly Wells, we had to wait for Mom's prescription at Walgreens, so we just went up to Warriors. It was all kinds of trash everywhere at Warriors when we showed up. And I let Summer play, and we just stood there for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we all got back in the truck and went and got Mom's prescription, and I took him home. And then we came home, reporter asked Candace. And so then Summer came back here with you later that afternoon. Candace shakes her head yes and says yes. Reporter goes back to her regular segment and states the trip from Warriors Path back to Ben Hill is just over 17 miles. But Bly couldn't recall how many hours that was before she reported Summer missing. The previously recorded segment continues between Candace Bly Wells and the reporter asks Candace about how many hours was that before she was reported missing. Candace replied, I really can't tell you all the time details because time gets away from me when you're trying to enjoy yourself. The reporter returns to the regular segment and states, the three then returned here to their home on Ben Hill Road. A neighbor says that she first heard Candace calling for Summer around 6 o'clock that night. Police say that she was reported missing around half an hour later, around 6:30. June 15th, 2022. And I didn't finish it. I stopped at that point because Angel had already done an interview on that day where they were, and I'd like for y'all to go to Angel's channel and look at that one because Angel is discussing body language in that one, and it's showing Leslie's body language. And again, I hope I don't get Leslie in trouble by bringing that, attention to her. But it's definitely, hang on one second, God, let me see something. So anyway, like I said, go back through this if you're interested. Write down the dates, the times, not the times, the dates, the areas. Hang on, I want to delete something here. Hang on 1 minute, guys. All right. So I wanted to keep an eye on something here that was going on. But pay attention to, it's okay, rumor. It'll be, it'll be uploaded here in a few minutes. I'm about to close it out. I was going to talk about a few other things, but this has already been long enough for me. And like I said earlier, I don't know if all of you know, but my daughter just oral surgery, and it's all starting to wear off now. So I want to go attend to her. But so I would like for you guys, if you have time and you're interested, to go back through and look at the dates in the areas that, not the areas that they say they searched because they don't say, but the area, the size of area. Look back over the things that were said and done, and then, tell me what you think, because I sure know what I think, and I've been saying it loudly as I can. All that area was definitely not searched. I don't care what two other people say. They have a reason for saying what they're saying, in my opinion. And but no, all of that property all around Ben Hill The roads behind on both sides, the area land on both sides was not searched properly. 110 was searched over and over and over and over. But how well was that done? Did they move all of the debris and everything, or did they just run a dog through and go, oh, dog didn't hit on this big old pile of trash at 125, so we're just going to keep on booking? You know, I really don't have a whole lot of faith in Hawkins County and how they conducted this, how Rescue Squad conducted this, or anything at this point in time. So I'm going to close this. Much love to you all. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I'll be back again probably tomorrow if she does well. If not, I'll probably see you guys after Thanksgiving. And if I don't talk to you before then, please have a happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Be careful. Watch your back. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for coming to see me. Be good to each other. Bye.